Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock tomorrow morning. And I just want to say a very big thank you, actually, to Tristan from Southend, who I've just opened this, Tristan. I don't know when you sent it. I don't know if anybody can see that. But it says Petrie Hosken, gay icon. Gay icon. I am chuffed to bits with that. I've always wanted to be a gay icon, so thank you very much indeed for that. I'm thrilled. I've already sent everybody I know photographs of it, so thank you. Anyway, coming up at midnight, I want to talk to you about being young and getting a job. We've all been young and we've all been forced into the world of work. But how did your parents get you into work? What was the idea? How did they make sure that you got a job? I mean, I had a job. I think I got my first job at 14, 15, working as a waitress at the Banbury Cross Cafe. Yeah, the glamour. But my father said to me, he said, for every £1 you earn, I will match it. And that got me, I mean, I wish he was still doing that, right? But no. But, you know, that lasted for a year or so. But that really pushed me into getting a job, because it seems that 1 in 2, that's half of all young people between the ages of 16 and 24, are unprepared for the world of work. They're not ready. They've not done any work experience. And also, it seems that with 1 million young people out of work, not in education or training or anything, just not working, just doing nothing, 1 million young people. And once you've lost them to the system, it's very difficult to get them back. So I want to examine that with you at midnight. How do we get young people prepared for the world of work? What do we do to make sure that we are not left with this 1 million young people who actually do not work and, it appears, don't really want to? So we'll be discussing that at midnight. And I want to hear about how you started working, what you did for your kids to start them working. I'll tell you, I had to be pretty mean to get my boy into work, and he reminds me of it to this day, but it worked. So I'd like to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. You can message me as well. 87222 is the number. You put the word talk up front. And then you can WhatsApp me as well on the same number as the phone number, 0344 499 1000. So there you go. That's how you get in touch. I'm really interested to hear your stories about when you started working and how your parents got you out to do it. So before that, we have our newspaper review with Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. We've also got our film reporter, Johnny Han, in the studio, and Phil Dave will also be with us talking through some tech stuff with us. But first, today marked the day that the Post Office Horizon IT inquiry published the first part of its final report. This part focuses on the human impact of the scandal and the compensation for victims. Its inquiry chair, Sir Win Williams, discussed the disastrous impact on those wrongly accused and prosecuted. Sir Win made 19 recommendations, including free legal advice and compensation payments for close family members of those affected, and address the formidable difficulties faced by victims around the financial redress. Currently, there are 4 different schemes for these people who were wrongly accused, some of them wrongly imprisoned, others, 13 it is believed, have taken their own life over this scandal, and 350 victims have died before this scandal has been sorted out. Many of the victims speaking today saying the money's great, and a lot of them need it because they put their own money into the post offices to try and balance the books when they were told that they were suspected of stealing, and they hadn't been stealing. But many of them as well lost their homes, their marriages, their families, their mental health, and, like I said, in some cases, their lives. So I'd like to hear from you about this as well through the programme, because it really is the biggest scandal of our time. But joining me now is Heather Tingle, former postmaster, now runs an Untangled by Tingle, a decluttering company in Sheffield. Heather, first of all, what a fabulous name you have.
Thank you.
Being called Tingle is just the best name ever. Look, Heather, let's discuss, if you could just describe to me about, because this is about the human cost to this scandal. Many people are completely unaware of it until there was a drama having to be put on the television, and suddenly the whole world woke up to the horrors that postmasters have been facing.
Absolutely. It's so sad that it took a TV documentary to actually get people's voices and the truth heard, and luckily part of that truth is now coming out on a big scale, but it's taken such a long time to get to this point, which is just so unfair for all those people that have been through it and have lost their lives through it.
And there are still people, I understand, who are carrying a criminal conviction.
Absolutely. They're still, and even those that haven't, that have had it quashed, that stigma and that shame has never gone away, and their lives are still massively impacted by it every day.
So tell me your story. What happened with you?
So I took on a post office for 10 years, nearly 11 years, and during that time I would be constantly putting money into the system because it would either balance perfectly to pennies, or if it didn't balance I would know where it had gone wrong, or there would just be discrepancies and you got absolutely no idea where they would come from. And every Wednesday night it would be a press the button, hold your breath, is it going to show discrepancy, or I'm going to stay for the next 2 hours trying to figure out where it's come from, or am I going to go home and everything's fine and I can breathe a sigh of relief? And that was every day, every week for 10 years.
The thing with the discrepancies is, when did they approach you about that? Because obviously originally you're thinking, well, if I'm only £200 out, that will sort itself out somewhere down the line, so I'll put that in for now, I'll be able to get it back later. So you're trying to catch up with yourself. When was it brought to your attention that this was a serious issue?
It never was, pretty much until just a few years ago, when it was all over the TV for the fight for justice. But on a personal level, I remember being in absolute floods of tears and ringing up the helpline and them saying, it's only you, obviously scripted, it's only you, no one else has these issues, just go back through it and try and find it. It's obviously something you've done wrong. And you think, well, okay, it's only me, then what on earth have I done? And I was very lucky. I was only a very small office with very few transactions, so I could see instantly if it was a transaction that I knew that had gone wrong. And I did, in 2013, have an issue and rang them and said, I know this is nothing that we've done. This is not human error. This is a problem. To be told, no, it's something that your member of staff has done. Again, you're the only one. You just have to put the money in. And it was only because at that point, it was known at that point that there were bugs. It was known that convictions were unsafe. They knew then. And it was only because I really kicked up a fuss that anything at all happened. They were just like, oh, just put it into suspense and just hold it there for months, hoping that I would forget about it and end up putting the money in.
How much money did you end up putting in to balance the books, do you know?
I have no idea. I have no idea. It's, £30 here and there,
Yeah.
a couple of £100 here and there. It's just constant over a long period of time. And it's only as I was leaving that system changed. I mean, let's not forget that the whole inquiry is based on the old Horizon system, but the new system is still, taken from that. It is still, the post office will still say it's a robust system. You said that years ago, and I have got friends, a lot of postmasters, and they're still saying it's still up and down, it's still discrepancies, they still don't know what's going on. The only difference now is that I think Post Office Limited know that actually they can't enforce that. And it was only as I was leaving in 2023 where there was a button that you could dispute, and it was up to them to prove that actually where it had gone wrong. And that's the little change that happened. But up until 2 years ago, you still had to put the money in. It was expected of you to do that.
When did you become aware that you were not the only one? Because at the time there were prosecutions going on, there were people going to jail. I mean, the most extraordinary, heavy-fisted behaviour from the post office and their lawyers, and the lies that they told to you guys, the lies that they said. Not only you were the only ones, but if you plead guilty, then you'll be fine. And then they didn't know what they were pleading guilty to. There was no real legal support. When did you wake up to the fact that there were potentially 1,000 other people in the same situation?
I got a letter from Justice for, I can't remember the group, but the Alan Bates group, saying, would you like to join this legal challenge? And at that point, in all honesty, it was like, well, although I've had moments, I had an auditor that, really turned on me at one point and luckily actually listened to me very briefly as to what had happened, which was a helpline giving me wrong advice and they told me the wrong thing. It was only because of that letter that I realised, but I wasn't in a position then because I was still a postmaster. I was like, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to put a target on my own back. In all honesty, I don't want to make life difficult for myself because I'm still a serving postmaster. I've still got to work with the system every day. I've still got, post office paying my wages in effect, as meagre as they are. It felt like, well, it's not really applicable to me because I've never been sent to prison, for example.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of postmasters like me that didn't get persecuted and prosecuted, but funded the post office in more ways than one by either putting the money in or, working on less than minimum wage for what is in effect a government department, really.
And are they going to pay you back? I know you've subsequently sold the post office. There were complications even when you came to sell it.
Yes, it was meant to be. I was told it was going to. I handed my notice in, it's like a 3-month notice. I was told the process would take approximately 10 weeks from start to finish. Ended up taking 9 months. My mental health was on the floor, and I would email Nick Reed, then CEO, and anybody that would listen, saying, "Look, my mental health is rock bottom. I have the perfect person waiting to take over this business, who has since handed her notice in to swap over." She ended up being homeless. It took 9 months before we actually exchanged, and I was very lucky that the post office was only a very small part of my business, but because of that one very small part, I was stuck, unable to sell my business. And I know lots of people have been in the same situation, where they've now got a business that they just either can't sell because of this scandal, who would want to have a post office now, or it has been made so difficult for someone to go through that onboarding process to buy. And it was only when I got a local MP involved and I, threatened press and also said, at the end of the day, my contract, by the way, which you could not find, by the way, is not worth the paper it's written on. I am selling it to this person. That suddenly wheels, came in motion, and it happened. So the lessons have not been learned. Post Office Limited is still a very toxic company, in my opinion, and the inquiry is all about the past. But people still not have been paid. I am very lucky. I took a fixed sum to
So
because
you feel you've had, for the money at least, you've been compensated.
yes, yeah, adequately compensated, and also the stress of filling the form in was very difficult, and asking for the paperwork. You were told to destroy the paperwork. You would have been in breach of data protection if you'd have kept that paperwork. So then trying to rack your brain and go through emails or speak to old staff members, can you remember when this happened? I was very lucky that the process had been made slightly easier by the time I got round to it. And also, I was meant to have got a letter informing me about this. I never got a letter from Post Office Limited. I only knew about it through an unofficial Facebook group with other postmasters. And there is another compensation scheme now, which I am apparently awaiting a letter to, tell me about. I still haven't received a letter about that either. So nothing has changed.
When you heard some of the stories that happened to eventually you found out the other stories, what was your immediate reaction?
Just heartbreaking, the stories, but also that could so easily have been me. It could have been any one of us, 12,000 postmasters. It could just, it was so unjust and unfair, and the people were not listened to. It could have happened to any of us, and I think you hear all those horror stories and you think, well, actually, thank God that did not happen to me to that extent, but it quite easily could have been.
I mean, there are people whose lives were entirely crushed by this. Their society, their environment, their homes, their reputations. I mean, like, literally every single part of their lives, because the post office it's part of the community. You're a well-known face in the community, and suddenly everybody's calling you a thief.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been absolutely devastating.
I mean, from my point of view, the post office, that welcoming hub of a community, is because of the sub postmasters. It is because of them. It is not because of Post Office Limited. In fact, a lot of the time, it's despite Post Office Limited, in my opinion. It's those people that make it what it is, and have been treated absolutely appallingly and had lives decimated.
What does justice look like to you? Because I know this was the first half of the report. The second half appears now to be delayed. It was due to come out in the middle of this year or later on this year. It looks like it might be at the beginning of next year. Now, this is where we start to really dig into who was responsible for what and when, because we certainly know it wasn't you guys, right? And who knew what and when. What is your concern that no one will face punishment for this?
Absolutely, yeah. It's people will say, lessons have been learned, but have they been learned? Actually, has anything changed in the whole corporation? I don't think so. People have still got their jobs. Okay, Paula Reynolds is no longer there, but that's one person. There was more than, and no one is behind bars. No one has been prosecuted for this, and it's quite obvious people lied and knew and sent people to prison when they shouldn't have been there. And also, I think also moving forward, how is it going to change in the future? I think that's also really important for those postmasters now. What is, postmasters are using food banks. What's changing there? And also, there's also the anomalies of people who were managers of post offices, but didn't directly have a contract with Post Office Limited. So, for example, they worked under a retail concession, like a big name store, and they were a post office manager within that store. They put money in, but they've not been able to get any financial redress whatsoever because they didn't have a contract with Post Office Limited. There's the staff members that had, they were in control of their own stock units and they had to put money in. It's not, yes, the sub postmasters have had a terrible time of it, but there are other people who have suffered and had financial losses because of this system that still haven't got a voice. So I hope that we will hear more of everybody's voice, and also it will move forward to be a bit fair and a bit more balanced in favour of postmasters, not just Post Office Limited.
I mean, we're very bad in this country at holding corporations legally to account, and some of your former colleagues today were saying that we just want to see somebody. The money's necessary, but we just want to see somebody held accountable.
Yeah, I mean, Fujitsu's still got government contracts.
Yeah.
People in post office are still in post office.
And Fujitsu hasn't even paid a penny in compensation. This has all come from the taxpayer as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
If somebody was looking at joining the post office now that you've sold, I think we can say it, what would you say to them, given... I mean, what I can't get over, I think, Heather, is the lying. It's the corporate lying, the fact that people absolutely knew what was going on. There was a backdoor into these computers. It was a lie. People knew about it and they still covered it up. It is egregious to a level that is very rarely seen, even in corporate behaviour. Mm-hmm. But what advice would you give somebody?
That's really hard. I think it depends on, do you have a robust business without the post office? Right. Because the post office will tell you it will be great for your business, it will drive footfall, but actually footfall does not pay the bills. Can you pay your bills without the post office? Great, then go for it. It is a very privileged position to be a postmaster, to be the heart of your community and to support people in so many different ways, not just selling them a product. It is being part of a really amazing thing and a wonderful brand, which unfortunately has been sullied by Post Office Limited and not the postmasters. But in all honesty, the tables are turning slightly more in your favour. You have slightly more power now than you did before. It is not totally a lost cause, but it's a long way before things change. So do not expect an even partnership with Post Office Limited, because you won't get one.
Well, Heather, I'm glad that your life, you're untangling other people's lives now, having untangled your own, untangled by Tingle. I still think you've got the best surname. Did you marry into that name?
No, this is the name I was born with, and I hated it as a child, but I love it now.
Oh, it's just brilliant. Why wasn't I called Petrie Tingle? I just think it's the best name I've heard for a long time. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Heather. Thank you very much indeed for joining me this evening. Heather Tingle, their former postmaster, now runs Untangled by Tingle. It's a decluttering company in Sheffield, so if you're in Sheffield, look them up. Quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good evening to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie. And coming up at midnight, it is the phone-in, the hour-long phone-in, just for you. So you get the opportunity to talk back. And what I want to talk to you about at midnight is young people and getting them into work. We have currently 1 million youngsters between the ages of 16, I thought they were still supposed to be at school at 16 or in higher education or in something, but anyway, between 16 and 24, 1 million of them who are not working. They're not in education, they're not in training, they're not doing anything. And from 18, of course, there is the benefits are available. There's some benefits available if you're 16 in specific situations, but at 18 you're an adult and the world of benefits is available to you. But what is going on with young people not wanting to work and not being prepared for work, not being prepared for the world of work? And I mean, in my day, back in the dark ages, there really wasn't any choice about it. I mean, I think I was 14, 15, maybe 15, when I got my first job, and if I wanted pocket money, that's what I had to do. I didn't. There wasn't another option. If I wanted to buy my singles, God, I'm old, or go down to Chelsea Girl and buy myself a new top. I had to earn that because we only got clothes at Christmas and birthdays. There was none of that was going on. So it was a proper old-fashioned upbringing where if you wanted stuff, you went out and you earned it. So are parents too generous? Are we too easygoing on our youngsters? What I mean, I'm glad that I had to work that early because I had to leave home about 1.5 years later, just before I was 17, for various reasons. So I was thrust into the world of work anyway. But I'd like to hear from you. What happened to you? How did your parents encourage you to work, or was it just a given? Did everybody sort of have a paper round or a job in a cafe or a restaurant or something? I just want to know if it was just me. So listen, give me a call on this. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your experiences and also how you managed to get your own children to understand that work is the only real way forward. 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there. Right now on Talk, it's Petrie, and coming up in this half hour, we've got Johnny Hearn coming in to tell us about some movies, and Kevin Schofield will be with us at the top of the hour to go through the newspapers for tomorrow. But right now, Phil Dave joins us now, broadcaster and editor here at Talk. Phil, evening.
Oh, good evening, Lady Hosken.
Good evening. Did you enjoy your dinner earlier with Chris?
My goodness me, news does travel fast in this society.
I know everything that goes on in this
You know
place.
everything.
I
yes.
know literally
well,
everything, even before other people
we met.
know.
We went for dinner with a mutual friend, not yours, Chris and my mutual friends. Chris is one of the producers as well at Talk, and it was very pleasant, thank you.
Very well. I just was wondering where my invitation was.
Anyway. I didn't organise it before you start getting snatchy, so, just saying.
Just saying.
I'd love to have been there, but you always say no to me Monday to Wednesday.
Oh, it's because I have to do this thing.
Oh, well, there you go. It's almost like.
Yeah, almost. Right, let's start with Microsoft to cut 9,000 more jobs as it leans into artificial intelligence.
Well, that is pretty much the headline, but what I found particularly fascinating about this is that if you thought Microsoft was going anywhere in a hurry, or indeed shrinking in its capacity, you might be wrong, because 9,000, obviously, a lot of people, and very sorry for those who have been affected by it, but that equates to about 4% of the Microsoft global workforce. 4%.
Wow.
So it's an extraordinary number, really, and you are talking about, my math is not great, what about around 200,000 employees, something like that, possibly just a bit more?
Yeah.
That's an extraordinary number of people. However, the point is that Microsoft has decided to focus its shift towards artificial intelligence, or AI, and while the company hasn't necessarily confirmed which departments will be affected, there are reports that suggest that the Xbox division, which is the gaming division, is potentially among them, which is not a major shock, I suppose, really, because that's games, if you think about it, is probably one of the most easy targets for AI, because let's be honest, although there might be big business in it, it doesn't necessarily have to be too serious. It can sort of like have a bit rough around the edges, if you like, whilst they're perfecting AI, because ultimately, funnily enough, it's a game. It's not really.
Well, they can get the AI to write the code at least, can't they? Even if it's not yet able to do the storylines and the things like that for gaming.
Absolutely, and we already have seen the way that AI has infiltrated many creative industries, not least of all our own, to be honest. There are absolutely the use of AI that has started cropping up here and there in terms of sort of like people writing various things, articles or scripts or all these sorts
one
of
organisation uses AI as on a sports bulletin reader.
Yes. I've heard sports. I heard it. They're doing weather. I didn't know it was sports
No, I
as
think
well.
it's sports. Yeah.
Is it? Okay, interesting. Okay, fine. But even so, absolutely, it is true that that these different companies are starting to use it, and it is going to creep in more and more. Now, I know that this is quite a scary prospect, especially for those, especially given that you were talking just now about trying to get people into work.
Yeah.
Let alone the prospect of narrowing down jobs. But I guess that there are two ways to look at this. Number one is the jobs that come with AI and potentially would be available through the development of AI. But then the other is, and this is a curious article, I can't remember if I've spoken to you about this, but I definitely did read about it, is that there is this sort of prediction that says that AI will be responsible in the future, not necessarily giving a timeline, for so many jobs out there that actually things will almost become cheaper because there won't be a need to pay so many people. And even though, I would love to think that that may well be the case, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, they're just going to shove it into profit.
I was going to say, when has anything ever become cheaper?
No, it won't get cheaper. They will just not pay people and shove that money into shareholders' pockets or their own. That's the way it'll go. They won't cut prices.
I tend to agree, but we can live in hope, hey?
Yeah, I'm far too cynical for such a thing as hope.
But they are going to start, apparently Microsoft are pouring a total of around $80 billion into AI development, so they really are taking this incredibly seriously.
So this is probably just the beginning of those job losses then?
I hate to say possibly.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the ICMR. We liked this story, didn't we? We talked about this a while ago, or one very similar between two hospitals. But tell me all about this one.
Well, it's sort of like the natural progression, really. ICMR, by the way, is the Indian Council of Medical Research. So this is just, I suppose it's sort of the next step, because it's kind of showing how it is progressing across the world. And it's about drones being used to deliver blood to patients who are in need of it. And one particular trial that ICMR recently carried out, and I suppose that you could argue that sort of it's more of a fair test in some parts of India, which are not necessarily reachable by your standard roads. If they are, then they're required off-roaders, jeeps, if you will. And one particular test that they did was what would have taken a van nearly an hour took just 8 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is why I sort of wanted to bring it up again, is because actually sort of this has become, whereas before the story I was talking about the two hospitals, the Guy's and St Thomas Trust.
That's right, across the river from each other. Yeah,
carried out across London. That's all well and good, but actually, to be perfectly honest, you could almost argue you could deliver it by bike and it would get there quite quickly. This is sort of like a fundamental difference now. As I say, you know, you're talking about a journey that would have otherwise taken an hour, and it really can be the difference between life and death. And I just think that sort of like the more that we hear about this, the more normal it will become. And I suppose it was really sort of, if you think about it, probably one of the sort of the big advances when it came to technology in medicine was when people started sort of making that move from just X-rays, which obviously we know are still used, but they're incredibly advanced in their technology, more to MRI. So the way that MRI scans took over from a lot of X-ray needs, because even though X-rays are carried out obviously for bones, they're not really used for an overwhelming amount else, because MRI just shows up so much more and gives more detail and has the ability to help medical professionals ultimately sort of give the best possible care. And I can't also help but think that sort of if drones will be used for the sake of, say, delivering blood, that suddenly traffic becomes a thing of the past. And, you know, could this potentially progress on to delivering patients to and from hospital? You know, if you think about how ambulances can get stuck in traffic, sirens will only do so much, but maybe it could be a cheaper alternative to the air ambulance.
Yeah, well, they'll just do the smaller, like helicopter type, you know, it's bigger than a drone, but smaller than a helicopter for individual patients, maybe. We could start seeing that.
It was interesting the way that sort of like, you know, the world over, drones are being used potentially more and more to advance medicine. So as you rightly identify, indeed, we have spoken about sort of this it almost sounds a bit rude to say this, but almost pithy test that was done in London. This strikes me as something major and very life-saving.
Well, also you've got the situation even in this country, haven't you? That you know, there may be maybe somebody with rare blood in a hospital in Manchester, and they need to get the blood from Birmingham. You know, this is going to cut down a lot of time. The London one that we were talking about previously, though, the latest on that is that there are some Londoners who are complaining about that this might be dangerous, and
complaining about saving lives. That's nice, London.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. Shut up, I thought.
How exactly do they think it's going to be dangerous?
Well, if these drones fell out of the sky, you know, I think it's dangerous if you don't get the right blood at the right time. But yeah,
I think it's dangerous if a car crashes into someone delivering blood. Are they going to stop that happening as well?
Well, some people will just complain about blooming everything, especially hangovers.
Don't think they'd complain if it was them who was on the receiving end.
No, of course they wouldn't. No. People always complain about hangovers. The older you get, the worse they get.
Don't look at me.
I'm just saying.
I can't deny that it is true that I am starting to feel the pinch of hangovers teensy bit more than I used to.
Yeah. It's one of the evils of growing older.
It's foul. If I think, and obviously please drink responsibly, but if I think all the way through my 20s, I could almost carry on as normal the next day and not feel a thing. And now
you need to sleep for 4 days.
It's like life's way of telling me don't drink anymore, but don't worry, I will fight it.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah.
You are quite right though in saying that there is something to do with hangovers and technology, because I think front page of the Daily Star today, if I'm not very much mistaken. New wearable skin, so this is front page for Tuesday, new wearable skin patch that basically could help prevent hangovers. And what it does, it alerts users when they're becoming dehydrated. Now, you're an awfully intelligent sort of creature, and I'm sure that you know that one of the biggest headaches, if you will, no pun intended, when it comes to hangovers is dehydration, because
Yes.
of course of the
That's what
alcohol
causes.
breakdown
That is
of
what
sugar.
causes the headaches. Is the
Yeah.
liquid that goes around your brain.
Is the breakdown of the, sort of the different elements of the alcohol, basically sort of unfortunately dehydrating the body, and as a result of it, it means that one experiences pretty bad headaches the next day. And so, as much as I quite like the little trick, and again, I do emphasize that people should drink responsibly rather than actually try this, and better still follow medical advice, is that you can actually, you know, the Diarrolite stuff, the stuff that you take for a bad stomach?
Yeah.
Apparently, if you drink that after drinking a fair whack of alcohol before going to bed and then waking up again, it can limit the effects of alcohol poisoning and indeed sort of the headaches. However, better than that, this particular patch that has been developed by one Professor John A. Rogers of Northwestern University actually measures how much water and alcohol, I suppose, is lost through skin, and can actually sort of send a notification to your phone telling you to monitor your hydration levels, really, and as a result of it, encouraging you for the amount of water you would need to drink to at least counteract the effects you might feel of the alcohol within the next 24 hours. So, and obviously, again, I'd stress that the sensible thing to do is probably know thy limit, but we're all guilty, I suppose, of going out for a bit of fun once in a while, and occasionally it can get a bit out of hands. And the thought of potentially this little skin patch, which my understanding, it doesn't necessarily have anything like needles or anything. You know how they got diabetes patches where you can stick.
Yeah, I think this just reads. Yeah, this just reads from the skin.
I think
doesn't
it just literally absorbs skin, and as
Yeah.
it absorbs from the skin, and as a result of it, it will send an alert to the phone, which I think is genius.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, it's always the old wives' tale is always, isn't it, about drinking water before you go to bed, or knit one, pearl one. That's what I was always told.
Here was me thinking that was crochet.
Yeah, that's drinking. Knit one, pearl one. But that's good though. If it stops those blooming hangovers. And quickly, if we can, a pine cone-sized device could transform the fight against wildfires.
Sorry, yeah, I always waffle, but okay, right. In an absolute nutshell, no pun intended, there's a tiny little device, as you rightly identify, it's about the size of a pine cone, and it's called a Petrie. I assume that's, isn't that sort of off some sort of like, is it Latin, I think, for fire or something like that? Anyway, the point is it could revolutionise wildfire detection, especially in remote, under-resourced areas. And what this is it's made from natural biodegradable materials, I think it's like wax or charcoal or something like that, and a sensor is triggered by heat, and it will actually send low-frequency signals when the fire actually starts. So it's designed to not only blend in with the natural environment and also not require much maintenance in the way for a great number of years, but more importantly to alert communities nice and early, giving them warning, a crucial head start, if you will, to evacuate if indeed fires are starting to spread, and better still, actually contain them before they get too out of hand. So pretty incredible little device that could potentially save goodness knows how many lives.
Yeah, and we need that. We need that, especially across Europe at the moment. They desperately need those early warnings. Phil, thank you, and I will see you soon. Phil Dave there, broadcaster and editor here at Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Trying to get sent a gay icon.
We're on air. A gay icon cup. Yeah, yes. No, that's what we were talking about, because I'm very proud. There you go. So there you go. Now, films. What have you got for us? You've got... have I seen this film before?
Which one?
Several times.
Yes,
Right.
kind of, yes.
Yeah, Jurassic.
It's one of those, yeah.
Jurassic World Rebirth.
Yes.
Same story, same stuff.
Okay, so the premise of this story is that a bunch of adults who really should know better, including a paleontologist,
Right.
go somewhere where there are loads of dinosaurs and then wonder why some of them get eaten.
Right.
It does sound a little bit familiar.
And these dinosaurs have been created in a...
Yes, these have been sort of created
we haven't
from
learned anything.
DNA. No. So
right.
the twist, if you want to call it that, of this version is that this is now set a few years after the previous film Jurassic World Dominion, and the theme park is closed down, obviously, because all the dinosaurs escaped and started eating people. And now the dinosaurs that have remained have managed to sort of congregate around a sort of a band around the equator, because that's the only place they can live because of oxygen levels or something to do with that. The paleontologist tells us early on.
Right.
And they're mainly sort of centred on a few Caribbean islands, and there is a pharmaceutical company that wants to get
and these non-swimming... Sometimes
no,
non-flying dinosaurs have managed to scatter themselves along.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Along the equator. Oh,
yeah, and a pharmaceutical company wants to get DNA samples from the three biggest ones. So the biggest land animal, the biggest water-based animal, and the biggest flying animal.
The water one's going to be tough, isn't it?
Yeah. So they can to make some heart medicine or whatever. Anyway, so they hire a bunch of people. Led by Scarlett Johansson to go and get these samples for them, and then, like I say, a bunch of adults who really should know better go to where there are dinosaurs and then wonder why some of them get eaten.
Right. Yeah. Okay. The sea one. I mean, I'm just saying the ocean's quite big.
Yes.
And yet they found one.
Yeah, but apparently it has to stay somewhere close to the equator.
But it's still quite a lot of water.
Yes. Yeah. Well, but they come looking for them. Obviously, the dinosaurs look for them because they think they're food.
Okay.
Convenient.
And there's no fish in them.
No.
I mean, I know I'm being a little bit pedantic.
If you try and make sense of the story, right, you're not going to get very
anywhere.
well, because it's about people going somewhere and getting eaten by dinosaurs, right? That's it. That's all you need to worry about.
That's it. Okay. Well, it's a 12A. It's 2 hours. Likey. And we have a clip.
We go towards Barbados, avoid government patrol, but there aren't that many anymore.
Why's that?
No one's dumb enough to go where we're going.
This island was the research facility for the original Jurassic Park.
We need DNA from the 3 biggest dinosaurs. Do we have to get a sample from an egg? I suppose we could try and get it from the parent, but they're a flying carnivore the size of an F-16. These dinosaurs were too dangerous for the original park.
Please don't say they're raptors. They're raptors.
The worst of the worst, we're left here. We put ourselves in a place we don't belong. Survival is a long shot.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen it before.
Yeah. If there had never been another Jurassic Park or Jurassic World film, this still wouldn't have been the best dinosaur film ever made.
Really?
Yeah, because there was 1 million years BC and the land that time forgot, and one of our dinosaurs is missing, which isn't even about a real dinosaur, but, you know, it's just pointless movie.
Completely pointless, but I suppose it's got the name. If you put Jurassic on it, people will go and see it. The Jurassic World.
Scarlett Johansson said it's always been a dream to be in a Jurassic World or Jurassic Park movie. Gareth Edwards, who directed it, he said it was been his dream always to make one of these movies. It's already made back its money at the box office, and more so, and that's in its first week. So yeah, there'll probably be another one. Oh, as long as people go and see them, they'll keep making them.
Yeah, stop going to see them. Stop it. They could put those talents to a much better film. William Tell.
Yes.
Do tell.
Yeah, well, you said you could put your talents towards a much better film.
This isn't it.
This isn't it.
No.
Okay, so this So this is based on the legend about William Tell, the Swiss hero, basically the Swiss version of
With the apple on the head.
Yeah, which apparently never happened.
Never.
It's all myth and legend. Probably never even existed. So yeah, it's set in the 14th century in Switzerland. The Roman Empire has left, and so various kings and whatever are fighting for land, including the Austrian Empire is growing, so they've encroached into peaceful Switzerland, and William Tell, for some reason, becomes the hero who leads a rebellion army against the Austrians. That's
okay.
and fires an apple off his son's head.
So he does actually do that.
In this
although
film,
in this film,
yes,
he does that. Yeah. I'm not sure it was his son's head in the.
Well, in the film, it's his son's.
So the William Tell. It's in cinemas. It's actually got a cinema
no, Sky
release.
Cinema. It's in
Sky
Sky
Cinema.
Yes,
I was going to say, so it didn't even get a cinema release.
Okay. I did learn a valuable lesson about filmmaking from this movie,
right.
and that is I've finally understood why it's so important to have a recognisable A-list celebrity in your main role in a kind of an action movie, right? Because it's a 2 hour and 15-minute film. An hour and a half into it, I'm watching it thinking, well, I'm pretty sure that William Tell must be the main character because it's called William Tell. I don't know which one is William Tell. And he'd actually said early on, I'm William Tell, and I still couldn't recognise him because I didn't recognise the actor. They kind of all look the same. I thought, well, it's not him because I know that's Ben Kingsley, but you know, I genuinely didn't know who it was until towards the end.
That's not a good look, is it?
By which point, because I wasn't following, the story wasn't coherent enough for me to know, oh, that's the main character, that's who I'm rooting for. He's the hero. He's the story I've got to follow. Because it wasn't clear enough, and I didn't recognise the actor. I got really confused watching this movie.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is what not to go and see. Let's have a look or listen to William Tell. It's a 15, believe it or not, 2 hours 14, and it's on Sky Cinema.
You think we're safe here? God has long forgotten us.
This is about our freedom, our families.
I leave them naked and trembling before me.
Fight for us. We will do it as one.
And now it begins.
Your heavy hand has created a hero.
He is one man!
Your ignorant abuses have increased resistance. Raise an army.
Prepare for war. And we will teach our enemy how we war!
The thing is that people do like these sort of big swashbuckly type, you know.
I mean, it's well made.
Game
I mean, there's a lot of action, and it's I mean, this wouldn't have been made if Game of Thrones hadn't been around.
Oh,
that's for sure.
It's that.
If you like Game of Thrones, but you didn't like the sex part of it, right, or the incest, or the humour, or the coherent storylines, then you'll probably like.
You'll probably like it. Okay, brilliant. Now, Heads of State.
Yes.
I did watch this, which you were not surprised to learn, and I did enjoy it actually because it's silly.
It's very silly. Okay, so the basic premise is the UK Prime Minister, played by Idris Elba, and the American President, who's a former action movie star, played by John Cena, who is obviously a movie star, but a former wrestler in real life. They don't like each other, and they end up on Air Force One flying to a NATO summit in Trieste in Italy, and they come under attack from some terrorists, and they crash land in Belarus, and then they have to find their way out of Belarus back to Italy, whilst some other people are trying to find them and kill them. And of course, they end up bonding and becoming good buddies.
I mean, it is a cop buddy. I mean, I know they're not cops. They're, you know, one of them's president, one of them's prime minister. But it is a buddy movie. And like I said to you, it was a double screener for me. So I was doing my shopping and, you know, booking my appointments and things like that while I was watching it. But I did like it. This is my sort of movie. I love these sort of silly, buddy, you know, high impact, silly stories. But I didn't think it was very well directed. I thought the story was choppy, if I'm going to be honest with you. It would jump. They got quickly through some areas too quickly and other parts dragged in their journey. But on the whole, You can't go wrong with Idris Elba.
No,
I'm just
fair
saying.
enough.
Just
Although
saying.
I have an issue with the title. It's called Heads of State.
I know.
But the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is not the head of state.
No, the King is.
It would have been a much better film. We were discussing this earlier. Had it been
King
the
Charles.
President and King Charles,
Would have been
It would
brilliant.
have been so funny.
Absolutely
much funnier movie.
fantastic with King Charles going, talking to
It would have been a
plants.
much better film. Yeah.
Have we got time to play the clip? Yep, let's play the clip.
What is it with you, walking around thinking you're better than everybody else?
What's the difference between me and you? You are the commander-in-chief, you know, some DJ in Vegas.
All right, I get it. You don't like my movies.
I've never seen your movies.
But the universe keeps telling me I look cool with a gun in my hand.
What's the difference between a toy gun. We just survived the worst security breach in history.
The cavalry's coming.
So keep calm and carry on.
A lot of people want you dead. My mission is to deliver you to the most secure location on this continent.
Hey, where's your backup?
There is no backup.
How are you alive? I just kept calm and carried on.
Yeah, it is fun. It's a bit of light fun, and Priyanka Chopra Jonas is very good in it. Yes. She plays that role really well, doesn't she? A dumb action movie, you've called it.
That sums it up, doesn't it?
And that is available on Prime Video, which is not known for its wonderful movies, but that's actually quite nice. John, thank you very much indeed. John Hearn, the filmmaker, broadcaster and talk film reporter. Right, coming up, we are going to be looking through the front pages of the newspapers for Wednesday, and by we, I mean me and Kevin Schofield. So make sure you don't go anywhere, because he'll be in the studio in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, it's good to have your company, and we are also in the rarefied company, of course, of Kevin Schofield, who is the Paul Ed of the HuffPost UK.
Get it?
Yeah, there we go. PolEd. So there we go, political editor. Listen, before we get to the papers, I want to talk to you about this youth employment situation. And that is that half of young people leave school unprepared for work, and we have a million young people now between the ages of 16 to 24 who are not in work, not in education, not in training, etc., etc. What are we doing wrong with young people?
Well, I mean, this is a perennial problem. I used to be education correspondent for the Scotsman when I still lived back home, and that was 20 years ago, and I used to write about NEETs then. So this isn't a new thing. This is something that's become almost an intractable problem. And successive governments have tried all sorts of ways to...
We had the youth training scheme.
Well, yeah, that's all the way back to... That was the Thatcher government, wasn't it? The youth training scheme. Obviously, the Blair government had the 50% target, trying to get 50% of all kids into higher education.
Which has backfired somewhat.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Conservatives, the coalition, I remember Michael Gove was Education Secretary, bringing in, I think it was he brought in T-levels, which was a sort of vocational
which I thought was a good idea, actually.
Yeah, and yet, as I say, it's still an issue. And if anything, it might even be getting worse.
I mean, it does appear that a lot of young people, I mean, there were always those kids who wanted to be, you know, footballers or actors or whatever, but it seems now as well that young people appear to believe that life is a lot easier, and that they can become, you know, celebrity for... You ask them, they say, oh, I want to be famous. What for? Well, I don't really care. I just want to be famous. It's just kind of like, well, you've got to have a talent or an ability or something.
No, I know.
So have we spoilt children in a way into telling them they can be anything that they want to be, in a sense, isn't true?
Well, there is part of it, and strangely enough, I had this experience this morning. So my daughter was getting ready for school, and she came downstairs, and I could hear her talking. And I says to her, who are you talking to? And she said, I'm making a video on her phone. I says, what are you making a video for? For my YouTube channel. And I says, well, you've not got a YouTube channel. And she's, no, but I will have a YouTube channel. And that's like, hopefully that's not the extent of her ambition. I mean, she has got other ambitions, but the idea that all you have to do is become an influencer. You know, you just have a TikTok account and you put stuff up there and you'll get millions of followers and lots of money, and that's you set for life. And I think a lot of young people seem to think
well, there's a lot of influencers as well at the moment, and they're not actually making that much money if you dig into it.
No.
You know, they really don't. It's only the few. You've got Mr. Beast, who's made hundreds of millions, millions and millions of pounds. He's got them. He's the biggest beast, if you like, in social media. What did your parents do to get you to go to work? Did they sort of say, no, you've got to get a job, or when did you start working?
No, well, I left school at 17, and then I did a journalism course for 2 years, and then went straight into journalism from there. So I was, they didn't have to worry too much about me, because I'd kind of had my heart set on being a journalist.
When are you going to achieve it?
Very young age. One of these days. You've got to chase your dreams, Petrie.
You've got to keep chasing that dream,
One of these days.
You'll get there one day.
I'll give up the YouTube channel and I'll become a serious journalist.
One day you'll make it.
But yes, I mean, I was lucky in that regard. I knew from like primary school, I think, that I wanted to be a journalist. I had such a lack of imagination, I couldn't think of anything else.
But there wasn't any journalism in your family, though? Or
no,
was there?
No. My dad was a sheet metal polisher. My mum worked in Asda, so it wasn't. It was a classic. I was the first in the family to go to university, and so it was. It was never something that.
What about your girls though? I mean, what age are they at the moment?
So the eldest is 15, and the little one is 9. So
so the 15-year-old should really have a job.
Well, she's a part-time job. You mean? Yeah, she should actually. Yeah, but she's not. But well, she wants to be an actress. I mean, she does have an ambition, and she does have a talent for drama, and she's very good at it, even though I say so myself. So that is her ambition. But even that, you know, it's so difficult. I mean, I've said that to her so many times. It is really, really difficult. But you still need your qualifications in order to go to drama school or wherever to study acting. So she needs to knuckle down, and GCSEs next year, and then hopefully A-levels, and then see where that takes her. So, but yeah, and the little one, she's only 9, but you know, she's.
But will you be encouraging your 15-year-old to get a job? I mean,
like a part-time job,
job. Because I think this is part of the problem at the moment. Is that certainly when I was 15. That I was of the generation where you didn't get new clothes unless it was Christmas or your birthday.
Yeah.
If you wanted to be fashionable, which you did as a 15-year-old girl anyway, you needed extra money during those periods that isn't your birthday and Christmas. And so, you know, I had to, if I wanted that, I had to get a job.
Yeah.
And I worked at the Banbury Cross Cafe in Banbury, just literally on the Banbury Cross. Just a communal garden sort of. I went home smelling of chip fat and stuff like that. But my father had said to me, for every £1 you earn, I'll match it for the first. He doesn't do that anymore. Cheapskate. But yeah, I thought that it's really important, but I don't think people do that anymore.
No, I think it is important that the kids see you going out to work in the morning, and they see you working, because me seeing my mum and dad going out to work, like my dad went out before 8 o'clock every morning, and I think that instills in you the knowledge that if you want stuff, you have to go out and we've inculcated the kids with that day in, day out. You know, you get nice things because mummy and daddy work really hard, and if you want to have nice things when you grow up, you'll have to do the same. So yeah, I mean, I had a part-time job when I was still at school, and in the holidays when I was at university, and just, you know, that's just the way it always was, and our kids have been told that they've got to do the same. I think once the eldest gets to 16, then I think that'll be the time for her to
just say, look, go and get yourself a summer job.
Just get yourself a wee part-time job, and then you get extra cash, which is great. You know,
and I think you've got to learn to be quite tough, and just from that age of you just say no. No, there's no. You know, pocket money. There's no. If you want, you are old enough now, and that is quite hard. I had to do something very similar with my son, when he came back from university and wasn't working and all of that, I had to get quite mean because it was just, you know, otherwise he would have just languished. But I, you know, he said to me the other day, he said, oh, I remember, because he's 28 now and a television director, so he's doing all right. But he was, he said, oh yeah, he said, I used to absolutely hate it because you would have no food in the house. And I said, I did have food. And he said, yeah, you'd have tins of things and I did that. Because I'm a cook, and I love to cook, and I would always, you'd open the fridge, there'd always be some freshly made pasta or some freshly made pie or, you know, something like that, because I enjoy cooking. So I stopped all of that, and if he wanted to eat, he'd have a tin of ravioli. And just that. You know, and so I had to really go, oh, is there no food? Oh, well, that's interesting, isn't it? There won't be any Wi-Fi next week either, so you know, the Wi-Fi fairies might go on strike. So yeah, I had to be quite mean, but it did work.
And you're doing them a favour, you know, you're instilling that
it doesn't feel very
ethic.
nice at the time.
No, it doesn't, and yeah, your instinct as a parent is to provide, isn't it, for your kids, so you're kind of fighting your own instincts by telling them to go out and provide for themselves.
I mean, I had to leave home before I was 17. My mother divorced my stepfather, and moved into a smaller house, and there wasn't enough bedrooms, and it was that. So I was out, you know, as being one of the older ones. There was only room for the youngsters. So, you know, there wasn't. I would never have done that to my son. There was never going to be a position where I chucked him out of the house, but I had to balance that with, okay, you can live in this is your home, but it's my house. That became the language. Do you know what I mean? So there was a separation there.
And you've got to pay your way.
Yeah, and you've got to pay. I mean, I never charged him rent, but I did expect that if he wanted to eat the sort of food he wanted to eat, then he would have to go out and earn it.
Well, that's fair enough. Or else it becomes such a culture shock when you do finally have to.
And it wasn't helped as well, because a lot of his friends were the kids of rich parents. And some of them didn't have to. And I was like, well, that isn't us, love.
Yeah.
That's never. We're not that.
But he'll probably thank you for it now.
Oh yeah, no, he does now. Yeah, although he does like to rub my face in it and remind me what an evil cow I was. No, he does. He completely respects it now, because it was never he was never going to go hungry. He was never going to go cold.
No, you're not going to starve
I just
him.
took the luxuries away. You know, I just took took those things away. But yeah, it was difficult. But I wonder if parents are tough enough now, because everybody wants to be friends with their kid.
Yeah, and we fall into that trap as well. You know, they'll do something and you'll be angry and you'll punish them, and then give it a day maximum, and you've calmed down, and all of a sudden you feel a bit sorry for them. You know, right, okay, and you just slip back into the old ways again. We've done it countless times.
And you forget that when we were teenagers, of course, nobody ever apologised to us.
No, absolutely.
I don't remember my parents ever saying, "I'm really sorry, I shan't."
Never, not once.
Not once.
Not once.
And yet now we do, right?
Yeah,
or we did.
Yeah. I'm not sure why that's happened, but yeah, we have definitely become.
We've
softer.
become a lot softer. I think the boundaries between parent and child have become very muddied. I think probably because our parents were quite tough on us, that we
they would hit
want to
you
be that
if you were bad.
Tough. Yeah, but we didn't want to be that.
And you didn't think you were a battered child because you got smack for being naughty.
No.
But whereas I would never dream.
No.
And my wife would never dream.
No.
It doesn't even enter your head.
No, of course
to
not.
Hit your kid.
But we've sort of tried to make friends with our children, which I think is a mistake.
No, they're not your friends.
They're not your friends.
Especially when they're teenagers.
Oh,
I tell you that.
They are.
They definitely don't want to be...
15, I'm telling you, Kevin.
No, I know.
It's the worst. They are psychopaths.
As my wife says, it's like she was 15 last month, and my wife says it's like she woke up on her 15th birthday and decided that I'm going to be horrible to my mum and dad, and you know,
15, I think, is they are psychopaths. They are. I mean, honestly, that was the worst time of parenting for a 15-year-old. Oh my God! It will pass. You've got another 3 years of it.
Yeah. No, I know that they'll.
And then
they'll
the
come
9-year-old
back
will be 15.
No, don't.
It's the worst age.
Think about it.
Don't let anybody tell you it isn't. It is. It does get better after that. When they're 28, they're really nice.
Oh, good. I look forward to that in 13 years' time.
It's not too bad. And listen, before we go to the break, let's have a look at the Miami Herald. This is an interesting story. They talk about the flood there. The flood, I think it's up at 104 people now. But this story, Justice Department plans to go after naturalised American citizens. This is an all-out war on illegal immigration, but it's not actually just on illegal immigration at all.
It's people who are
it's people who are naturalised now into being American citizens, and also, as we know, this isn't about the criminal gangs. There's been a process done of the hundreds of thousands of people who've been swept up already. Something like 80% are law-abiding citizens. This is very, very worrying. Donald Trump he's often branded immigrants as criminals, invaders, predators. Well, at that time he said they were eating pets, wasn't there, as well? Now the president has directed the Department of Justice to bolster its resources in a major crackdown on naturalised citizens suspected of unlawfully obtaining their US citizenship. The only problem with that is they won't get due process to prove that they didn't obtain it illegally.
Yeah, and it's to create a climate of fear, isn't it? As you say, the vast majority...
Did you see what they did yesterday in the park in LA?
No.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Hundreds of armed ICE, IRS, police, FBI, all these people, some on horseback that were armoured horses, armoured vehicles, going across a park in LA, sweeping for illegals. Who goes to parks? Criminals? No. Not on a Monday afternoon.
Families.
There was families, and luckily the word had got out before that, and all these families and young kids that would have been swept up in this cleared the park, so it was virtually empty, and they were hiding in. Lots of people were saying that I opened my shop and let them into my shop and then locked the door. This is America, people. This is Los Angeles.
It's absolutely astonishing.
Unbelievable. So they didn't. It's unknown as to whether they managed to find anybody, but it is unlikely that they did. So now it's naturalised American citizens. It makes a mockery if they were going to go after the worst of the worst.
No, absolutely. It's people who may, the emphasis on may have lied to obtain citizenship, or who may have committed crimes since becoming naturalised citizens, and they're just using that as an excuse.
Yeah. So what about a 34 times felon who I don't think he was born in was he born in the US? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think he was, wasn't he?
But I know he comes from German descent. Yes, he was born there, yeah. But he is the child of immigrants.
His mum's Scottish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think his father was German. And certainly his wife is an immigrant. And certainly their son.
And his first wife as well.
Yeah, and their son Baron is the child of immigrant, of an immigrant mother.
Yeah.
So it's
don't expect consistency from Donald Trump.
No.
But as I say, I think it's just create this climate of fear among the immigrant community, and it's really, really sinister.
I mean, this is terrifying. And actually, Miller, who they think is the man pulling the strings on all of this, has said that he wants the American population to be 100,000. I think that's what he said.
The population?
The population.
Of the whole country?
What is it at the moment? It's 350 million, isn't it? 100 million, sorry.
Jeez.
So he wants 100 million people, he thinks, and of course their skin colour would be white. Right, and the Trump administration here as well, it says, is moving to end the protected status for Hondurans and Nicaraguans. So these are people who are at the moment legal in America, but will have their status revoked, and that's already happened to hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, so right now they're protected from deportation because of
the situation
in their
countries,
Honduras
and Nicaragua.
But they're now saying it's all fine, so
it's
you can
all
go
fine,
back.
they can go.
And we will help you go back.
It's clear the government of Honduras has taken all necessary steps to overcome the impacts of the Hurricane Mitch almost 27 years ago. Honduran children can safely return home. So even those that were born in America in 27 years, the children would have been born here.
Yeah, of course.
There's a suggestion that they have to leave America as well. So even though they get that, you know, the birthright citizenship, the suggestion is that they, well, I think it's more than a suggestion, actually. Anyway, look, let's take a quick break before we head to look at the UK papers.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here, and with me is Kevin Schofield, who's a political editor at the Huffington Post UK. And we're going through Wednesday's front pages now. Post Office has blood on its hands, this is the Daily Mail, over the toll of 13 suicides. At least 13 people they believe were driven to suicide by Horizon IT scandal.
Yeah.
So this is the first. We've had the first half of the report on Tuesday. The second half of the report, which actually will make for fascinating reading, will, I think, apportion blame as to who knew what and when.
Yes, that'll be
really interesting.
Really explosive.
So it's looking at the companies and the Post Office and Fujitsu and places like that. But this one on Tuesday concentrated on the human cost.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the papers understandably have led on this angle, but at least 13 were driven to suicide by, I mean, unsurprisingly, really, given
they lost everything.
Yeah, and were treated as criminals, were ostracised by their local communities, and at least 59 others tried or considered taking their own lives. Again, you can absolutely understand why. I mean, these were people who...
And you know that you're innocent, right? That's the worst thing.
Yeah,
you know you haven't done
absolutely. But what they didn't realise initially, and they were told, no, you're the only one. You're the only one. Even though they knew that this was happening all over. Yeah. So these poor people must have thought they were going mad. Yeah. Because they knew they hadn't taken the money, but were being told, well, you have this here, it's on the computer, it shows that this money's just vanished, and it can only have gone to you. And they think, God, but what am I doing wrong? Or you start to doubt yourself.
Is that when these Post Office lawyers went to court, they must have lied.
Yeah,
they must have lied.
Yeah, because they had to protect the integrity of the Post Office
in a courtroom,
and of the computer system.
That's perjury. I mean, that is a prisonable offence.
I don't know how to sleep at night.
Especially with a lawyer, you'd be struck off as well. Because surely, in a court, they would have had to have said, these are not the only ones this has happened to.
Yeah.
And even that omission on its own caused these... Because if the judge had known that there were 900 other people that had the same problem happen to them, they probably wouldn't have gone to prison.
Well, quite. And what I could never understand either is how they were convicted or charged when there was no trail of money. As if you know what I mean, there was they couldn't point to, or you went on all these foreign holidays, or you had this like fancy new car, or you cleared your mortgage, or you got an extension, all this type of thing. What happened to this money? It just vanished.
I think because these were good, honest, decent, ordinary people. Yeah. They were persuaded in many cases to confess.
Oh yeah, well, to plead guilty.
Yeah, to plead guilty because then it'll go easier on them. Yeah. And look, it was nothing will happen.
Yeah. There was a few that had to do that.
Yeah. Horrifying.
And again, if they'd known that there were dozens of others,
they wouldn't.
Hundreds of others across the country in the same boat, and they would never have done that. Obviously, it's clearly. That to me is the most sickening thing about it, is that the Post Office knew
and it was orchestrated.
That there was a problem with the computer system, but rather than admit it, they'd happily let all these poor
throwing people in jail.
Yeah,
and Paula Venables, the head of, she got a bonus for implementing the Horizon system, which, as far as I know, she never paid back. She was asked to pay it back. A huge bonus at the time that these people were being sent to jail, and she said that she didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, I mean,
which is unthinkable.
Well, that's
Somebody's
why the rest.
Got to pay, right?
That's why, absolutely, and that's why the rest of the report, next stage of the report, will be fascinating because that will, and it's going to be damning. I mean, there'll be a lot of people will be having a sleepless night tonight, wondering what.
I hope so, because this was a really egregious conspiracy.
Awful.
And the other thing that I'm really cross about with this is that it's the taxpayer that's paying this compensation. It's over £1 billion. I don't begrudge the compensation, by the way. I think they absolutely deserve every single penny and more.
But they're still waiting.
For what they went through. A lot of them are still waiting because they won't accept the lump sum that they've been offered, because it doesn't even begin to cover losing their homes, losing their marriage, losing their family, losing their status, losing work, all of those things. Why isn't Fujitsu sticking its hand in its pocket?
I don't know. It's a pretty obvious question to ask.
This is a private company that profits still from working on government contracts that hasn't been asked to pay the compensation bill.
No.
And that to me, I think, is because it's always down to us, isn't it? We always have to cover every, like the blood scandal and things like that. It seems so unfair that the taxpayer always picks up the bill.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that next report will be fascinating. Like Kevin said, other papers covering this as well. The Mirror, post office scandal, tragic toll, awful stories, and they've broken down a lot of the stories. 10,000 people are still waiting for damages, and some have still got a criminal conviction on them as well. Which is ridiculous. And
yet the ordeal just goes on. There's one woman's in her 90s and is still fighting for...
Well, 350 people have died of old age and natural causes since all of this started. So, you know, they're not going to see compensation, so I hope their families get it.
I hope so. You better.
The other story on the front page of the Mirror is Greg sacked.
Yeah, Greg Wallace just broke quite late on this afternoon.
Yeah, it did.
I mean, on the one hand, it's not that surprising. There was never any way back for him from what we already knew or what was already alleged. But we've subsequently discovered that another 50 people have come forward with complaints about his behaviour. But as we'll see in other papers, he's not going to go quietly. He says he's already criticising the BBC, saying that he was diagnosed with autism and never given any support, and that he effectively was employed as this cheeky chappy grocer, and that was
his
part he played.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that really
I don't think that
excuses
I think that
some of the stuff that he's been accused of.
I think the world moved on and he didn't move on with it. That's what it feels like. It's very difficult to feel sorry for him, and not because I don't have a heart and I think, oh, you know, he went too far, his language was too fruity or whatever, and it was misconstrued or whatever. But it's his response to it that leaves me cold.
Yeah.
I would have more sympathy for this bloke in his 60s, I think, who still thought it was funny to say cheeky things to women if he hadn't responded in the way that he did.
Or if he just held his hand up and said, you know, I'm sorry, and you know, to everyone who I hurt and offended, but he's clearly not going to do that. And
this business is full of young people.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all about 12 next door. I mean, I can't, you know, it's all young people. You've got to learn their language. You've got to get down with the kids. Get down. While we discuss getting down with the kids, let's take a quick break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk. It's Petrie and with me Kevin Schofield, and we're looking through the newspapers for Wednesday. The I-Paper, UK state pension triple lock, the end is in sight. It was always very ambitious and very generous, wasn't it, the triple lock?
Incredibly generous. I mean, this was dreamt up by David Cameron when he was Prime Minister as a way to basically shore up the pensioner vote.
Yeah, the grey vote.
And I'm sure at the time it seemed very clever politically to do it without any thought whatsoever to the long-term consequences of an ageing population, and you're guaranteeing them at least 2.5% and usually more of an increase every single year. And it's now, surprise, surprise, it was predicted to cost around about £5 billion a year by 2030. It's now predicted to be £15.5 billion, so that's triple.
Wow,
now,
that's triple locked.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is all stems from the Office for Budget Responsibility put out a report today basically saying the UK's debt will if it's not already unsustainable, it very quickly will be, and one of the main reasons is the amount of money that we pay out to pensioners. And it's basically now the big debate will be, well, how long can the triple lock last? Now, the problem here obviously is that the moment a political party suggests, even hints that the triple lock is unsustainable, it's unaffordable, and we're probably going to have to get rid of it at some point, the other parties leap on them saying, you're an absolute disgrace, you're going to, send pensioners into penury. Now, you've only got to look at the backlash that came with the winter fuel payment. Now, admittedly, it was daft the way that Labour implemented it. They made the worst possible way of implementing policy. However, that was relatively small beer compared to ending the triple lock. Starmer had to U-turn on it because it was so deeply unpopular. The only way I think this could work in practice would be if every party decided, we'll call a truce on this one. We'll all admit this isn't right. The triple lock's going to have to end, and they all jump together. But I just don't know the political advantage to be gained by saying you're sticking up for pensioners.
Well, I mean, and also
will just be too tempting in an election, I think.
In the future, with the size of the older population, they may be the only ones that actually vote.
Well, yeah. And why on earth would you then?
Why would you then poison that?
We're going to, we're
because
going
you're going to lose that vote, right?
Exactly.
And these are people who do vote, who feel a social conscience about voting, the social contract about voting, and a lot of younger people do not.
No.
So it's a difficult political thing to pull off.
It becomes a bit of a doom loop, really, because young people are disenchanted and cynical at politics simply because they see the older generations
with all the wealth
getting all the perks, where and probably sitting in big houses with no mortgage, worth a fortune. I'm not saying every pensioner's like that, obviously not. But whereas young
that's
people,
certainly the view.
But young people will be saying, well, hang on a minute, I can't get on the property ladder, I can hardly pay rent, I maybe have a huge student debt to pay off, and I'm expected to work, to pay taxes, to pay your pension. So they think, well, the whole system's rigged, why should I bother? And you're right, then it becomes a doom loop, because, as you say, old people will vote, so therefore politicians need to pitch their policies to them, and the whole problem just goes on and on and on. So and
it ties in as well to the youth unemployment, right? The social contract's broken, why should they be working?
Quite. But no, I think, I mean, the end is in sight. I think that's a little bit optimistic, really. It's not in sight, but it will have to end at some point. It will just be fascinating to see how it actually happens, because right now, neither Labour
nobody's got the cojones
Reform or the Tories
are
willing to say it. No.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't think so. Summer heatwave number 3 arrives this week. It's at the top of the paper.
I hate it. Absolutely hate it.
Well, you're Scottish.
Yeah.
You weren't born for
this. We
this.
weren't designed for this type of weather.
No. But didn't this just used to be called summer?
Well, do you remember it being as hot as this? I don't remember it being. I mean, certainly in Scotland, but even since I've come to London, it is quite unusual for it to be this regularly in the 30s. And I'm speaking to my wife, who was brought up in London, and yeah, London obviously was always hotter than the rest of the country, certainly Scotland. But as hot as this for as long as this.
In the 70s, wasn't it? 76. That
was 50 years ago. Remember, just a couple of years ago, it hit 40 degrees. Remember that time it hit 40 degrees in London, which was, oh my goodness, just horrible.
I suspect this is going to be the new normal.
Yeah, well, I think it is.
So we will start calling it summer.
Yeah,
at
we
some
will.
point.
We will. But it's we're not designed for it in terms of.
No.
There's no aircon in people's homes.
No.
They weren't
It's been
designed with
hilarious
aircon anyway.
watching some of the social media comments, because all these people coming from really hot countries going, I take it back.
Yeah.
I take it back. I always thought the Brits were just moaning and complaining, but they're right, it's a different kind of heat.
Yeah, it's different kind of heat. And as I say, you go abroad where it is in a hot country and you'll go into places in the aircon and it's
and
lovely.
You're sitting outside and it's
nice.
lovely
It's
and
just
breezy.
Whereas, it's not like that here.
It's not like that
it's
here.
Oppressive.
Yeah, it really is. I've got a paddling pool for my dogs. So.
For your dog, nice. You're not tempted to get in it?
No, I put my feet in it, but it's
the dogs must love it though.
They love it. Well, the puppy does anyway.
Yeah.
The Sun newspaper, this again looks at Greg Wallace. Sacked Greg, it's war. BBC reveals 50 new claims. Wallace, I won't go quietly, probe led to, it says in inverted commas here, heart attack.
Yeah, apparently pals said the stress led to him being treated for a suspected heart attack at the weekend, but I'm guessing it wasn't a real heart attack.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, I understand. He will obviously be under an awful stress.
Yeah.
But it does seem to be self-inflicted, really. He has really brought it on himself, and he's 50 new accusations. I was reading earlier a bit more detail on it, and some of it is pretty unsavoury.
Yeah,
it
really
is
pretty gross and not funny. It's not.
No, it's not funny. No, and obviously in his mind it was, jokey, but also quite sleazy and not nice.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he's
and his
career's over.
co-presenter John Turode managed to be of a similar age and not upset anyone.
Yes.
So it's not like it's
quite
a given.
No, absolutely. Well, he ended up marrying a contestant on Celebrity
MasterChef. Yes,
whose
I
name
can see her. I can't
Faulkner.
remember.
Lisa Faulkner.
Lisa Faulkner.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look at the Metro. 13 suicides linked to post office scandal. Again, more of this coming out of the report. The final report, but the first half of the final report, so another half to come. The Independent, looking at the Macron visit, royal welcome for Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte at Windsor Castle. They're staying there tonight.
They are,
nice Airbnb.
All the bells and whistles, 3-day state visit and all the red carpet treatment. He addressed Parliament today, both Houses of Parliament, gave this very lengthy speech. I've got to say, having watched it, it wasn't terribly newsy, but it was quite interesting what he said. Clearly wanting to.
Is this the third state visit that Macron's had?
I don't know. It'll be his first, is it not?
I thought he'd been here before.
But he basically wants the UK and France to be much closer. And interestingly, he was talking about we shouldn't be over-reliant on America, given how unpredictable America is, and China as well, given its global ambitions. So, it's...
We've always had a weird relationship with France, haven't we, really?
Frenemies, you might want to say. You remember when Liz Truss was running to be Tory leader and she was asked if, was it France a friend or foe? And she said the jury's out. Which is extraordinary. I mean, this is Liz Truss we're talking about, but amazing, really, that you could say that about a supposed ally. But it's and obviously Brexit, which Macron is very critical of. So I think now that Starmer is in, who clearly did not support Brexit, I think there is an opportunity there for Britain and France to have closer ties.
Well, we are the two nuclear powers as well. Let's not forget that. So actually, militarily, there's a lot to be said for us being hand in glove over any potential use of nuclear weapons to defend the rest of Europe.
Absolutely. And in the speech as well, he got a very loud round of applause for saying that we stand by Ukraine. It's absolutely ironclad commitment to Ukraine, which is very much what Keir Starmer's position is as well. So there is obviously a lot in common. And it also shows the soft power as well of the royal family, doesn't it? That, you know, even countries, republics like France, they're quite impressed.
Oh yeah, I was saying that earlier. Actually, I was saying of all the leaders,
after what they did to the royal family.
Yeah, after what they did to the royal family, of all the leaders, I would have thought that France wouldn't have been impressed by a state visit. But the King and Queen, they do know how to pull out the stop. The country knows how to pull out the stops.
Absolutely.
That banquet, and the King chose the wines himself and was involved in all of that. And he's quite political, as we know, Charles. Probably, and his speech was, I think, a little bit political.
Yeah. No, he's not afraid.
More than the Queen would have been.
Definitely. I think he sees he has that. That's part of his role.
But he's very intelligent, switched on, aware man. I think.
No, I think you're right. Yeah,
so I think he's very into geopolitics. He knows what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And the next one, of course, is
Trump. Yeah, that'll be. That will really challenge Charles's diplomatic skills.
Will he be allowed to speak in Parliament? Because he wasn't last time, was he?
No, it wasn't last time. Bercow,
Bandit,
a very political speaker. This time, I would imagine. It's not confirmed. I think he would. I think he would. I wouldn't. Yeah, I think Starmer would have no qualms about it if he thought there's a political advantage in it for the UK. And I don't think Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker, would look to put his foot down. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
That is way too generous. That is a real privilege to allow somebody to speak.
Yeah.
Because they do it from the public gallery, don't they? They're not allowed on the floor.
They did it in the Royal Gallery.
That's right.
Yeah. And Obama did.
Yes,
didn't
he?
And Zelensky has addressed the Houses of Parliament as well.
Yeah.
So I think.
But again,
Trump,
not from the actual Commons. They're not
no,
allowed
I think
to do that.
from Westminster Hall. Yeah. But Trump, I think it would appeal, as we know, he loves to be flattered, and it would certainly appeal to his ego. I would not surprise me.
When are we going to realise that buttering up this man's ego is not going to make any difference at all? You look at the steel deal that we're supposed to be getting.
Yeah,
it's absolute rubbish.
Tomorrow's the deadline.
I think it's been extended again.
Oh, has it? Right.
Taco and Caco. I don't know. I think there's some reprieve on that, but it will come. We're not getting any special favours from Donald Trump. And Keir Starmer sucking up to him is not making any difference.
Yeah. No, I'd be very surprised if he didn't get to do that. And you're right, it is a huge honour, and I'd be surprised if he didn't. I think he'll be allowed to.
Wow.
Which will be a moment in itself.
I think that
he could say anything.
Literally, I mean, it is worth it just to hear the nonsense. But I mean,
it was so impressive. Macron, impeccable English.
Yeah.
You know, obviously a very thoughtful speech, commenting on lots of different issues.
I'm always very impressed with Charles's French as well, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely, very good. But Trump's. It's probably Macron's English is better than Trump's, and Trump's speech might be less thoughtful. But it'll be box office though. It'll be good. It'll be good for news, which is the main thing.
I mean, that is the problem, isn't it? As journalists, we're kind of going, let him do it. But as human beings, we should say no, really. Quick break, and then we'll be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you, and with me is Kevin Schofield, who is the political editor at the Huffington Post UK. And we are going through Wednesday's newspapers. The Daily Express, again, going through that report that came out today on the Post Office and Horizon scandal. 13 lives likely lost due to Horizon scandal. Awful, and also mentioning there Norman Tebbit dying at 94, and of course he was Margaret Thatcher's right hand, wasn't he?
He was. I mean, a remarkable story.
Yeah.
94. You think, I mean, goodness, he'd almost died in the Brighton bomb, and his wife obviously was left paralysed.
Yeah.
I mean, quite a remarkable life.
And he stuck by her.
He did. Well, yeah. He basically gave up on his political ambitions after that to look after his wife, which is to his enormous credit. I read one, John Whittingdale, who used to be was a Conservative MP and cabinet minister, but also was an advisor to Margaret Thatcher, and he said that, in his opinion, Norman Tebbit would have become the next Prime Minister after Thatcher if it hadn't been for the Brighton bomb.
If it hadn't been for the Brighton bomb.
If he hadn't had to give up his. But there's a quote from Norman Tebbit I saw today as well, where he said that basically he always felt very guilty because his wife wouldn't have been there if it hadn't been for him. You know, they were only in the Grand Hotel because he was in the cabinet, and that's where the cabinet were all staying for the Tory conference. Yeah, exactly, when the IRA blew up. So he felt a sense of responsibility, and so he devoted the rest of his life to
looking after her. I mean, a behemoth of politics, even in the...
Yeah, they don't make them like that anymore, there's no doubt about that.
No, they really, really don't. No. The Guardian limit trials by jury to save justice system from collapse. I saw this. I'm very concerned about this. Thousands of defendants in England and Wales could lose the right to jury trial under plans published designed to save the criminal justice system from total collapse. It doesn't save the justice system to weaken justice.
No.
In my view. It, in fact, does the opposite.
Well, yeah, especially if it ends up with innocent people going to jail. But yes, at the moment, only defendants facing minor offences don't have
they can go to
a
magistrate court.
Yeah,
but they can demand it if they want to.
Yeah, actually, you can.
You can demand, even if you've been accused of nicking a Mars bar, you can demand a jury trial.
That's right. I think it's a different system than in Scotland. It's not like that in Scotland, but which is the one I've got experience of covering, obviously. But so one of the recommendations is that a new division of the Crown Court with a judge and 2 magistrates to hear what are known as either way offences, or those in which the defendant can choose to be heard by either a magistrate or a jury. So there'll be a special court set up for a judge and 2 magistrates. But then, but reclassifying some either way offences so they can be tried only in the magistrates' court and trial by judge alone for serious and complex fraud cases. So yeah, you're right. I mean, that is one of the fundamental principles of our justice system.
To be tried in front of your peers.
Yeah.
And there's also a concern about this in that the judges that we're talking about here do not in any way reflect the population of the country.
No, of course not.
In terms of demographics, and there is a concern that this will become a really racist issue, that a black or brown person in front of one of these judges is of a certain age, who doesn't identify with the person in front of them, that this could become a real issue for those people.
Oh, you can absolutely see that
happening.
You can
see it happening, definitely.
Very easily.
Whereas in a jury, you're more likely to get your peers in front. You're more likely to get a cross of skin colour, of age, of political persuasion, of social standing. That's what juries are meant to be. They're supposed to be this sort of ad hoc, so at least one person there might be somebody that could understand you.
Yeah.
But this way, I just, it doesn't stop the system from collapse.
There's definitely warning
weakening
lights flashing over this. And it all seems to be the case in this country that we wait until something is on the verge of collapse before we come up with a stick and plaster solution. Basically something that will get us over this hump.
Yeah, like letting prisoners out.
Don't really think of the long-term consequences, but there's a crisis. Let's just solve the crisis and move on, and don't worry about when it
I just don't think that this solves a crisis without creating another one, and that is the problem with this. We lose jury trials to all of our detriment, because if one conviction isn't safe, then as far as I'm concerned, none of us are.
Yeah.
And juries, they may not be infallible, they may not always be right, they may not always get it, but it is the safest version of justice for people.
Yeah.
And I find it really worrying that the idea that just to take away juries, which would make it a lot cheaper.
Well, it would, and in theory, I suppose, presumably speed the whole process up, which clears the backlog. But even Sir Brian Levison, who's headed up this review on behalf of the government, said that he's been forced into recommendations that he did not, quote, rejoice in. So even he acknowledges that this is a fairly extreme
this is horrible
suggestion.
And only the real truth of how horrible it is will be 10, 20 years down the line.
Well, quite, exactly.
That's the problem. And by then, how many miscarriages of justice have happened? I don't know. Unusually, The Guardian has gone with the presenter Wallace fired from MasterChef on the front page.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit shocked to see that there.
Yes, yeah. I suppose it's a big story. I mean, he was a big, well-known figure. But you're right, it's quite tabloidy from the front page of The Guardian.
Yeah. Do you watch the tennis?
Yes, I have been watching the tennis.
Have you?
Yes, it's not the same that Andy Murray doesn't play anymore, but...
No, but he became British when he played at Wimbledon.
He did.
He was only Scottish when he was somewhere else. So has it been good this year? What about the AI, the line calling stuff?
Yeah,
the liar.
Well, they have this AI thing now, so they don't have real line judges. But obviously, it's not infallible. No. But there was one of the games yesterday, and the AI got it wrong. And even though it was obvious to the naked eye that it was out by like that, like a foot out. But because AI had called it out, they had to replay the point. Even though
that's stupid,
the players in the commentators were like, well, hang on a minute, that's obvious that it was out. We don't need to replay the point. We can tell with the naked eye.
Yeah.
But it just shows, the AI.
Somebody switched it off.
The answer to everything. Yeah.
Can you believe that? Somebody just unplugged it.
It's astonishing, really.
Love that.
Absolutely astonishing.
I love that. Someone's gone to charge their phone, haven't they?
Yeah. What does this plug do? I don't know.
It doesn't matter. It can't be anything important. It's behind the bar. The Times. Let's have a look at the Times before the end of the hour. Labour rules out paying doctors more to halt the strike. Wes Streeting has warned junior doctors. They want to be called resident doctors, don't they? Not junior doctors. But anyway, the public will not forgive them for launching another wave of disruptive strikes, as it's made clear the pay rise was off the table. They demanded 29% pay rise in a long-running dispute.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny, isn't it? Were the shoe on the other foot and this had been happening under the previous government, as it did, Labour would not have been saying to the unions, to the doctors, the public will not forgive you.
Yeah,
they were having a go at the government and saying, how have you let this, how have you let relations between ministers and the BMA get to such a level? You've got to get round the table and sort it out. But it just shows it's easier said than done. I mean, 29% pay rise. Now, the junior doctors, resident doctors, call them what you like, say that's just to get them back to basically parity because they've lost that much since 2008. But yeah, exactly. And I think the danger for them is that they lose the public's sympathy. I think a lot of the public will think, hang on, at 29%, that's ridiculous. You're already, to your average member of the public, you're already well paid, and all this is going to do is cause more chaos in the NHS. It's going to have massive political implications for the government as well, because Labour have obviously said they would bring down waiting times, which it has done up until now.
It could be a good excuse for them, though. in a way.
Oh yeah, but I think they would rather bring down
Yeah.
the waiting lists. Whereas because the Tories used that excuse, the exact same
That's
excuse,
true.
they went up because of the strikes.
Because of the strikes, yeah. Blame the doctors.
Yeah.
On the front there's a nice picture of our future King and Queen, the Princess of Wales, with her husband, William. We were saying, weren't we, that they look very grown up.
Very grown up now. Yeah, they're definitely. Yeah, they look like they're just sort of just waiting to take over. Really, you can see them, and you know they look like monarchs, if you know what I mean.
They really do.
Not that I'm wishing ill on King Charles, obviously, but I'm just saying
but they just
do
look
the part.
so grown up.
They look the part. They don't look like kids anymore.
No, they're grown up, unlike us. Kevin, thank you. Yeah, we're never going to grow up. We'll grow old, but
We'll
never
grow
up.
old, definitely.
Kevin, thank you very much indeed. Kevin Schofield there. Right, coming up, it's just you and me, and for the next hour we're going to be talking about what it is to get a job when you're a young person. Now, the problem is that we have 1 million youngsters at the moment, 1 million who are not in education, not in any form of training, and not in work. 1 million. We need them to get to work. So how do we do that? And the other part of the question I want to ask is, how did your parents get you to go to work? Was it was always just accepted that you would have to get a part-time job, you'd have to get a job when you were 16, 15, I don't know. But I'd love to hear your stories. I want to hear how it is. And how have you got your kids to go out to work? The phone in is in a couple of minutes.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. It is Petrie here with you, and for the next hour it is just us chatting through some stories of the day. And what I want to talk to you about is the story that's been that was out just saying that half of young people now leave school unprepared for work. Fewer than half actually of young people, 47%, felt ready for work after education. And I think a lot of young people are trying to delay that moment, that adulting moment when you get a job, and because they don't want to. I mean, look, you're stuck there for the rest of your life, aren't you, having to work? But there seems to be a real issue at the moment. I don't know if it's work ethic. I don't know if it's the social contract, which I've mentioned before, that has broken down between young people and the country that they work in, because they're sitting there thinking, well, it doesn't matter how hard I work, I won't be able to afford a house until I'm 50, or I can't afford a rent, I can't pay the rent, it doesn't matter what I earn, the rent is too expensive, I'll have to be working and staying at home or whatever. I don't know whether it's that. I don't know whether it's because parents have become too soft on their kids and they don't want them to have to grow up too quickly, and they will sub them and look after them and not pressure them to get work. I don't know whether it's because the kind of jobs that are out there probably don't seem very exciting if you've built your hopes on being a social media influencer or an actor or a football player. I don't know what the problem is, but we've definitely got one. I don't think that, certainly the generation behind me, would have had any choice. I don't think there was a choice. I don't think, and I mean, I didn't really have a choice. And like I said before, if I wanted new clothes or the latest album, I either waited for my birthday or Christmas, or I didn't get it. So the only option I had was to go and get a weekend job, a Saturday job, and I did, because I wanted those things. I wanted to, you know, wear nice clothes when I went to a disco or whatever it was. So there wasn't a choice. There wasn't a parent there buying me clothes, or there wasn't Vinted, or eBay, or, you know, very good charity shops. You had to go and buy these things. So, and my friends, I think, were more spoilt than I was. Their parents would buy them clothes if they wanted clothes. And people used to get these catalogues. Do you remember the catalogues? And you'd pay for them weekly, or a couple of quid here and there you could pay for catalogue stuff. So that it really was very, very limited. And so if you wanted these things, you had to work. Both my parents worked, and I'm glad that I started working early at 15, I think it was 14 or 15, because before I was 17, I had to leave home. I was kicked out. There was no room at the inn for me. And so that was it, really. There wasn't a choice. So work was, I wasn't even aware of a welfare state. That I didn't know one existed. I barely, frankly, knew what a mortgage was. So it was different. Maybe it's too easy now or too difficult, and I literally cannot decide which way around it is. I can't decide whether it's too easy for kids now or it's too difficult for them. And maybe the pandemic played into it as well. We've got to look at that as a possibility, but we cannot have a world where young people don't work. And it's not about them bludgeoning off their parents. It's not about them not even joining society until they're much older. It's the fact we need the tax. We need them to be able to pay towards the country. We need them to be able to pay towards the pensions of our ageing population. And if they don't work, we need to get migrants in to work, because that money is necessary. It's not like you can just go, wow, we don't need it. We do. And so someone's got to earn it, and someone's got to pay the tax on it. And if it isn't these children, then it will be other people's children from other countries coming here to fill those jobs. Not just to fill those jobs, but to pay the tax linked to those jobs. So, what's your story? How do you think that we get young people to engage in the world of work? Are parents to blame? I suspect a lot of parents just want to be their kids' friends. So they're probably not pushing them into the world of work. They're not making them get a job at 15. Maybe it's, I don't know what it is. I genuinely don't know. I think it's probably a whole host of things. But listen, how did you get your kids to go and get a job? And how did your parents get you to go out and get a job, paper round or weekend job or whatever it was? What was the motivating force? It's always got to be money, right? But what was the motivating force, and how did you get your own kids to do it? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Leslie is in West Sussex. Hello, Leslie.
Hi there.
Hi
Great
there.
show.
Thank you.
Right. I'm 63 now. My dad was such a hard worker. I came up from a quite affluent background, but at 14 I had to go and get a part-time job. I worked in boots.
You were almost as glamorous as I was then.
Anyway, well, obviously I've had my kids, got 4 kids, me and my husband, and me and my husband have both worked very, very hard. And when they were all younger, the first thing they ever did, even though we weren't hard off, we were able to treat our kids and stuff and look after them, but as soon as they could, they all got paper rounds, every single one of them, including my special needs son, who's now 33, who is a successful scaffolder. All 4 grandchildren aren't all children now, all in their 30s and 40s, and all work very, very hard. And I hope that continues to go on to my grandchildren. So there you go.
So do you think that then it is that they learn from their parents? Like I said, all of my mother was, I had stepfathers and things, but everybody worked. And maybe that is a learned thing, that you get generations of people who are on benefits, for example, and their children are much more likely to have a life on benefits because they've not seen an example of working.
I tell you what, my husband now is 73. He should be retired, but he's still working because I think he'd get bored if he did.
Yeah.
And that sends an example down the whole generations. Myself and my husband have always worked very, very hard all our lives. And it's an example down the line, and it's gone down the line. Even my youngest grandchild, who's now 14, is going out to get paper rounds. So it just goes down the whole generation.
But it's also about smart parenting, isn't it? That you give your children always what they need, but rarely what they want.
Well,
do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. Our children, they weren't short of anything. They had some spectacular holidays to America and everything. But even though we were able to do that, as soon as they got to paper round age, they had to go and find a job, which they could do, in school time, obviously, but learn to earn their own money. So,
I think I honestly believe it's one of the greatest gifts you can give to your child. Is to instill in them that you've got to go and work, and work isn't always about just having a lovely time, right? It's about earning money so you can have a lovely time elsewhere.
My daughter is a top person now with, funny enough, my son's special needs. She's 40. She's 40 tomorrow, actually, believe it or not.
Yeah. You've got a 40-year-old daughter.
I know, tomorrow. No, she's not 40 till half past 10 tomorrow, though.
How did that happen, though, that you've got a 40-year-old daughter?
Oh, I don't know. Time just
it's just weird,
by.
Isn't it? Yeah.
But she now, I've got a special needs son as well, but he's a successful scaffolder, and I've got a grandchild. He's got a son and everything, and children. But she now works with adults with learning difficulties, but she's got some children now, her grandchildren, and they're quite wealthy because she's got both very, very good job. But the first thing she said to me the other day was, first thing I'm going to get, when they get to 13, 14, they're getting a paper round.
See, that's brilliant. I honestly believe it's such an important thing to pass on to your children, that you give them what they need, but you don't always give them what they want. Because if you give
how wealthy you are.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Even if you're really wealthy, you should apply the same rule, right? Because if you give them what they want all the time, then they're never going to understand what it is to want something enough to go out and work for it.
No, exactly.
I think it's really important. I think it's really important to do that. And my son, I didn't always give him what he wanted. You know, if he wanted an Xbox or something really massively expensive like that, he'd have to wait, and and that would be birthday and Christmas and horrible parent things like that.
It still happens to this day. My 33-year-old son wanted. I don't know what the latest technology Xbox thing is, but last Christmas, so 33, believe it or not, and I mean, it was like 400 and odd pounds.
I know.
And so I pretended to give him a card with the money in. Of course, the money wasn't in there. And I said, right, but this is your Christmas, Easter, birthday, and next Christmas presents.
Yeah.
And he thoroughly accepted it. So
again, that I think that it's really, really important to make that distinction and say, look, this is expensive. This is what this costs, and this is how many hours I might have had to work in order to buy this. So this is a couple of birthdays and Christmases all in once. And I think that a lot of kids are so used to getting what they want. I don't know, you're talking about a 33-year-old, mine's 28 now. But it's still a case of them understanding the value of something, the cost of something.
The value of money.
Yeah, so important. Well, you sound like you've done an absolutely smashing job, Leslie. Leslie there in West Sussex. It is so difficult because you want to spoil your children, you really do, because you love and adore them, but it's not always a good idea, I'm telling you. And I know that from seeing some of my son's friends who've got very wealthy parents for whom their child got absolutely everything all the time. And I was the baddie because I wouldn't jump and buy the. I was a single mum. I couldn't always afford it, but even when I could afford it, it was like, no, that sweatshirt that everybody's wearing that you want, you could wait for that. Oh, I'm so mean. I'm going to take a quick break, but I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Where am I? Am I there? Oh, there I am. There you go. Don't know what happened there. Nothing if you're on radio. Sorry about that. But suddenly the camera wasn't working. But there you go. It is Petrie here with you. And we're talking about young people and getting them into work. And there is a major problem in this country in the number of young people who are not in work, not in training, not in education. If you're one of them, give me a call. I'd love to hear from you as to why that is the situation. And I think that a lot of people want the ideal job. They want to, walk into the perfect job. They want to be a radio presenter, for example. But it kind of doesn't work like that. And I think that a lot of people think they're going to get their dream job from day one and not necessarily prepared to wait. And I do think that that is an issue with young people, that the ability to wait for things isn't there, because everything is so immediate now. Everything is so immediate. You can information at your fingertips. There's none of that going to a library to look up old newspapers as a rookie journalist and trying to find old stories. There's none of that goes on anymore. It's all there at your fingertips. You don't have to wait for anything. You can order an Xbox probably now and get it by tomorrow morning. Right? You don't have to wait for anything. You can go online. You can buy stuff, get it the next day. Everything is just so quick now. So for me, it's not a surprise that a lot of young people think that they should immediately have the job that they want, as opposed to going into a place and starting at the bottom and working your way up to the position that you want. I think that there's a story here as well that sort of backs this up, and it says as well that the 13 to 18-year-olds that are 77% of them are considering how important mental health support is at work, which it would never have occurred to me. It barely occurs to me now. Companies like this are pretty good, actually, with mental health stuff, and there's always this, if we see news stuff that we find traumatic, there's somebody we can go and talk to and things like that. And a lot of the younger people probably are more traumatised than we were when we were younger. But there's also, they're most concerned with mental health, and they want benefits. Younger employees want benefits such as flexible hours, remote working, and pet-friendly offices. So younger people are much more demanding of the workspace. It's not he who pays the piper calls the tune, right, anymore, right? So a lot of businesses now are having to adapt and come up with, bring your dog to work Wednesday, or bring your cat to work Tuesday, or whatever it is that they have to do now to encourage young talent. So that they are more demanding, and perhaps that's a good thing. I don't know, probably not. But how do we get them to accept that work is not only the right thing to do, but it's also a good thing to do, that you meet people. Most people meet their partners through work still. That you make friends through work. It is fulfilling in lots of ways, even if it's a boring job, and we've all done boring jobs, right? So there's all that after work culture, adulting, having money, all of those things are all really, really good. So we can't have young people opting out of that. It's not right. It's not good for them, it's not good for the country. So how do we figure that out? And what did your parents do to get you to work, and what did you do to get your kids to go out to work? Back to your calls now, and Tristan has called from Southend. Tristan, I opened your present today.
Oh, you're very welcome. I remembered you saying no one ever sends you gifts into the show.
Yeah, and that wasn't a beg. That wasn't a beg.
No, not at all. No, it wasn't. But you're fabulous, you're beautiful, and you're unstoppable, and that makes you a gay icon.
I love so much. I'm so proud of this. I really am, being a gay icon. I've sent it to most of my gay friends saying, look, excuse me, I am a gay icon. So, Tristan, thank you. It really means a lot. Genuinely means a lot to me. So that's very kind.
Thank you. Glad you like it.
I love it. Love it.
Right, on tonight's subject, you've just stolen my thunder, unfortunately. I was going to say the problem we have now is young people just expect to walk straight into a high-paid executive job, and that is not going to happen.
Why, though? Why have they got so... Is it because everything's so instant now?
I think it is, yeah. People just... It's a very materialistic world we live in, and people think they're going to buy a house, buy a car. Well, sorry, you have to build your way up to that. And there's a lot of people who leave university, for example, who think they're too good for jobs. And there's many people who leave without the right qualifications from school. Now, I think the solution to this is, until you turn 21... if you don't have a job, you shouldn't get benefits if you're capable of doing one. You should get put on a training course immediately, full-time, until such time as you do find a job or you qualify.
I don't disagree with that, actually. Yeah.
I think it's the only answer, really, because the trouble is, it's amazing. Some people can't do a CV, yet they can fill out a 40-page benefits application form as easy as pie.
Yeah.
And that needs to end. It really does. I don't know about 21, maybe even 25 might be the answer, to be truthful with you. But you should be doing something with your life until you get the opportunities to actually do something you do want to do.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think 25 is the age. And I also thought the other day, well, what would be quite a good idea is say that between the ages of 18... and 25, 28, you're entitled to 2 years worth of benefits. Yeah. It's up to you where those 2 years come.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, so if you're 18 to 19, you use up a year, that's a year gone. And then, but there's nothing else until you're that age, there's
Completely
one more year.
Agree.
So that it's, in some ways, it becomes an incentive to not rely on a life on benefits. And I think a lot of young people are starting to do that.
Yeah, and you mentioned mental health in young people. The thing is, if you're suffering from anxiety or depression, the cruelest thing you can do to someone with that condition is to leave them in a room looking at four walls 24 hours a day.
I agree.
Jobs cure illnesses sometimes, and it's completely true. I totally believe that with mental health problems. Not the severe ones like your schizophrenia or bipolar and so on, but basic depression and anxiety, they should say to you, you've got to work because it will benefit you enormously.
But Tristan, what I'm confused about, and I completely agree with that, like I was saying, work is more than just a means to getting money, and it always has been. But what I don't get is, I think, is that parents are not playing along either.
Petrie, I completely agree. I've got two brothers who are 20 and 23 years younger than me. Now, I love my mum with all my heart, but one of them got a job at McDonald's as soon as he left school, and he's still there today. He works his socks off. My other brother went to university, and when he finished, he didn't work for 2 years because apparently the jobs were so bad, my son's not doing that. And that was completely unfair because my other brother was contributing to the household, whereas he, and I love my mum very dearly. I know my brother was applying for jobs, but he was spending a lot of time on the phone to his girlfriend in America and playing computers.
Yeah, I just think that's an indulgence, isn't it? It is just to indulge somebody, and it doesn't do the right thing for them. And it doesn't really matter. You know that you're not... I mean, when I travelled the world, I kind of worked in fish and chip shops, and I did all sorts of things in order to get money together to continue travelling. And I've worked all sorts of rubbish jobs in my time, because you've kind of got to, right? And there's lots of jobs out there. There's lots of, certainly in hospitality.
Oh, goodness me, yes, but parents are enabling their children to do these things. That's the problem. They're enabling their kids to sit at home because I think the parents are too embarrassed for their children to have a mundane job. It's like there's a big snobbery around work now.
But it's crazy.
Yeah.
Because there's no better feeling really than your first, paycheck and your parents not being able to tell you what to spend it on.
Exactly, it's so rewarding.
Yeah.
And for me, I had to move out when I was 18.
Yeah.
So I pretty much had no choice whatsoever but to get rolled up my sleeves and get a job.
Yeah.
But if I can give anyone any advice, have manners, exceptional manners, and they will get you anything in life, including jobs and including promotions.
Completely right.
Works.
Completely right. Absolutely. So what I always said to my son is, you treat everybody. I don't care if it's the CEO to the parking attendant. They are equal.
That is
because
completely
any
right.
of us that has to go and work for a living, which is most of us in this country, right?
Yeah.
We're the same. It doesn't matter what job.
Right.
We're all having to work, so we are all on the same level.
Yeah,
Nobody is better than anyone else.
You're quite right, Petrie. You earn promotions. You don't just get given them.
No. Be polite, be
earn...
kind, and don't be arrogant. Don't think you're the bee's knees because of where you are.
Yeah,
it really drives me nuts.
And no matter how much you hate the job, always walk in with a big smile every time you turn up. It goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, it does work. And I just think, but have children lost their confidence? Again, it is. I was always had to speak to adults and was around a lot of adults.
Yeah.
Children don't seem to know how to do it.
Yeah, we just mother our kids too much as a society, don't we? Because they're highly demanding and get whatever they want sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's usually the kids who've had the toughest lives who go on to be the most successful because they don't take things for granted.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I was out, like I said, I was out of the house before I was 17.
Yeah.
No choice. There was no handouts.
Absolutely.
I'd sort myself out. Even though my family were reasonable, I mean, we weren't well off by any stretch, but
it
was middle class, I guess, but there was no help.
No, absolutely not. But that's a good thing, Petrie, because it could have set you up for life, and it probably has.
It probably has.
Yeah.
Although, obviously, I need to grow up one day and get a proper job.
Oh, bless you. You've got a proper job and you're fantastic at it, and we all love you.
Oh, you are the sweetie. You're my favourite at the moment. Thank
bless you.
Thank you so much for your call, and thank you again for the wonderful gay icon mug, which I'm thrilled with. Quick break, and I'll be back in a sec.
Across the UK on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning. I've just had a message from, apparently, supposedly my best mate, Timmy. And I sent him a picture of my gay icon mug. And he's just replied, said, "Gay eyesore, more like it." That's somebody who's supposed to like me. Gay eyesore. Yeah, he's just jealous. He's just jealous because he's just gay, he's not an icon. We're talking about young people getting a job and why it is, it seems, and look, I'm not criticising young people. I'm not saying that they're lazy, but I am saying that there's an issue with why young people seem to be avoiding the world of work. We have an 11-year high in the numbers of young people between the ages of 16 and 24 who are not in training, not in education, not in work, not doing anything. So how is that happening? And it's not something that can happen. It's not something that can happen because if these young people don't ever work, then first of all, they will become a drain on society. They will become a drain on a benefit system that they have never paid into. They will become a drain on an education system for their children that they have never paid into. They will become a drain on the health system that they will use and their children will use that they've never paid a penny towards. So this is a really not a good situation that these numbers are climbing of young people that are not in work. There's also a report out saying that half of young people leave school unprepared for work. I would add to that they're unprepared to work. So there's a problem. And I don't know if it's the social contract. I don't know if it's because their parents are treating them like little prince and princesses and not, pushing them into the world of work. I don't know what the situation is. Maybe there just aren't the jobs that they want to do. All of those things. So how do we fix this? How do we get young people into the world of work? Because apart from those problems that I've just outlined, is in taking from a country they're not giving to, we then have to import people to do jobs that A, are vacant, and B, because we need their tax money to pay towards a pension and to pay towards a health service and to pay towards everything else that we require in this country. So it's a big issue that needs to be dealt with. So how do we deal with it? And I'd love to know how you dealt with it with your own children and how your parents dealt with it with you, getting you to accept that work was something not that you chose to do, but that you had no choice in doing. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Just to let you know, the calls will be charged at the national rate, but we do call you straight back, so it shouldn't cost you very much. Gary has said, "I couldn't wait to start working at 15. I was paid £29 a week for a 39-hour week full-time." Good heavens, really? Less than £1 an hour? Wow. On a youth training scheme with John Menzies. I loved it. I don't think benefits should be paid for under 21-year-olds unless they have disabilities. Young people need to learn that everything has a value and you get nothing in life unless you work for it. Yeah, that has got to be, it's a really important thing to teach your kids. They've got to work. It's impious. Keith is in Coventry. I think this is the first time you've called with Keith.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for picking up the phone. Good to talk to you.
You've got a lovely voice.
Thank you very much.
I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you said in the previous call. I was very polite. I always thought the gay icon thing meant that someone was secretly gay.
No, it just means you're an icon to gays.
All right. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I keep going to my life as being British and things.
Yeah.
And things, and going, and I'm one of these people that's never really worked.
You've never really worked?
No, I've had jobs, but I've never really worked. I've got brain damage, but I have had ideas.
Right.
For things, and I've been ripped off. There's a lot of people like that. They have ideas. They've wrote songs that have been hits and everything.
Oh, right. Oh,
I'm not lying.
No. I take everybody at face value on this programme, so you tell me that. I believe you.
Some sort of clique of people that can just say, I'm going to rob you and things like that. And what basically happened is senior Nazis invaded the Tory party and tried to control the country and undermine the king. And he's made a comment recently about no borders with France. And basically, Britain and France aren't going to be set on each other anymore by Central Europe. You see, and countries like Poland have been held back economically, and the citizens have came here, but they haven't taken a share of migrants from outside of Europe to create this sort of universal mix that everybody seems obsessed with.
But Poland. I mean, that's off topic. We'll get back to the topic. But Poland has economically succeeded now since joining the European Union. It's been brought up to parity, and lots of Polish people have gone back. But listen, let's talk about why young people are not getting into work. Why aren't young people getting into work?
I'll give you a biggie. And it has always been swept under the carpet because there's so much money generated for this, for criminals, with money laundering and businesses. And a lot of these businesses now that they used to launder money for, it was ridiculous. You could literally walk past a market stall or a shop. You could see it was making no money, and yet it was still open.
Yeah.
And they've got so much more sophisticated with it, you know. These cheap tracksuits now, and they're ridiculously cheap. And they're obviously being buoyed by illegal money, yet they've got premises within, malls and things. They're not on market stalls anymore. And basically, there's so many children on drugs now, on crack cocaine and things, and the parents have been on it, and their parents have been on it, and heroin and things, you know. But
and that's what's keeping them out of the job market.
Yeah, because they'll go to work and they can't support a drug habit, going to work and end up sleeping with drug dealers and that, and all sorts of crap. I mean, if I was in charge, I would open up hostels for young people that weren't happy with their home life. They wouldn't have to explain it. They wouldn't have to say, and there's people sexually abused and things. They don't want to talk about it. They can't even orchestrate it. They've grown up and think it's normal. They need time away from the family home, and they can go 5 years later, wow, I'm just glad to be away from it. You see?
Yeah, I do think.
Experience is my mother and father were heroin addicts.
Yeah.
And my mother had a friend. My mother was a prostitute, and I didn't have a good life. You know, my parents were always wanting drugs or something, and I didn't realise when I was a young child what it was about. She put on a lot of weight when she had me in the early 80s. There was this whole thing with AIDS. Everybody was terrified. And there was a man that she was friends with, and he was nice to her, and he used to rape me. But he was buying my mother drugs because his son was a drug dealer from abroad. You see, so you don't know the problems that are in children's lives. They can't even articulate it. You get to an age, really, honestly, the best thing we can do is open up dormitory-style buildings for young women and other ones for men. And literally you get a good-sized double room and a fridge freezer in it and, you know, a small cooking device and a sink. And they say, if you want to stay here, you can stay here as long as you want, up until you're 25. They can be assessed for mental health, learning difficulties. And I have severe memory problems, and I go to the doctor and I say, I've done tests in the past. I have severe memory problems. I have the memory problems of someone who's got early onset Alzheimer's. It won't get any worse, but I go to the doctor, and the man will turn around and say, oh, what can I give you for, and he's trying to treat me for mental health, and I said, it's not mental health I'm here about. I'm here because I have memory problems. And it's very,
and they haven't sent you to a memory clinic or anything?
No, I am being honest with you now. I went on the radio many, many years ago, and I said, they need to start typing prescriptions. Now, I know from you, I've not seen you, you think this is, maybe you could misconstrue this as racist. But there are a lot of foreign doctors, and you couldn't read the writing, it was illegible. And there was absolutely no comeback for them when they're prescribing things. Now it's very difficult to get a prescription for anything because it's typed up and it can be held up in court. You see?
Yeah.
But what I do apologise because of my memory there. I forgot what we were talking just before that.
Yeah, don't worry, Keith. Don't don't worry yourself about it. I mean, look, I agree with you. I think there are a lot of young people who are in dire situations at home.
It doesn't even need to be dire situations. I mean, what I'm saying is they could be a bit spoiled. They could be a bit whatever. Just let them go to, but if you're 16, you can go and stay in a dormitory. If the parents say, I can't put up with them, he's spoiled, I've raised them a bit wrong, I've made a mess of it. No, really. And they'll mix with other children and everything. They'll be going to work every day. And if they're not working, I couldn't agree more with the man, they should find something for them to do. They say there's plenty of grass to go out and cut. You know, I always think it's lovely having flowers and things about in society and in parks and things and fields, isn't it?
Mm.
Why don't they get them to say, well, if you're not doing anything, go out and dig trenches and plant flowers and at least they're doing something.
Well, they're trying that. Aren't Labour sort of trying that with youth volunteering schemes or something to do some things like that? As you know, that either they will have to be in a job or be in education or spend a year there was some mention of something like that, a year volunteering something somewhere to do things like that. And it's just getting people to. You've got to make them do it, because I don't think they're going to actually volunteer for it. Keith, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Let's speak to Aaron, who's in Warrington. Aaron, good morning. How are you?
Do you remember me?
Yes, I do. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, madam. How about you?
Good. I'm, not too bad.
Yeah, I stuck to my promise. I said I'll give you a call back, and now here I am back on the show. Thank you for having me here again.
Of course, of course.
Now we have to talk about the job, isn't it? What's going on now?
Yeah, with young people, why are they not choosing to work?
That's because I think, if I'm being honest with you, this generation is getting a bit lazy. I think nowadays everybody, they just want to sit at home, watch TV, play games, which you can't really do that as a life cycle for the rest of your life, because it's not good and it's not fair on your parents, because young people, they should be either studying or working, because you have to help your parents out either way.
And it's good for your brain, isn't it, as well? It's good for you to be out social. I mean, if the less you socialise, the less you want to socialise, right?
Yeah.
So that can create all sorts of mental health problems.
Exactly. It's, for some people, it's a bit of a struggle, like for me, I see, because, for example, people can get along with you, people can't get along with you, but you have to stick with the right people. And yeah, people do come and go. I'm still trying to learn that, and also patience as well.
Mm.
I'm still going through that, and yeah, but other than that, you're right, it is good for the mental health to be more out and you socialise more.
And I sort of understand why young people have opted out of the system, because the system isn't really there. The system, it's not a case of the harder you work, you'll be able to buy a house by the time you're 30, right? That's not what's happening right now, because everything is out of young people's reach. But
yeah,
I sort of understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you? That the young people don't believe that they're going to get on, that they're going to get very far, so they might as well opt out now.
Yeah, which is a bad thing to think, because we are young. Like I said, people there, they're still young. People out there, they're still young. There's a chance. They still have so many opportunities. It's better to just go for it now rather than just waste time.
While you've got the energy, actually.
Exactly. Because 30 or 40, you might be bored of it and everything. That's what I'm saying. Do things that you do now, that you love to do. Ignore what people say. People say, oh, what you're doing is cringy, or this, or that, or that, or that, whatever. So what? You do you live your own life.
If you can afford to live your own life. You've got to be able to afford to pay for your own life. That's the thing, Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
Got to learn how to pay for it yourself. Aaron, good to talk to you. Thank you for calling back. Really appreciate it. Do call again. I just want to read this before we go to a break. Our 16-year-old son has just gone straight into an apprenticeship with a local prestigious handmade car company who are training him at a heritage motoring centre. He's on full pay while most of his friends are sitting around wondering what to do in September, gazing at their PlayStations all day. We're so proud of him and he's loving it. Gloat, gloat. You deserve that gloat, my friend. You deserve it, Joel. Enjoy it. Yeah, it's always, when your child finds the thing, it's it's the best feeling in the world. It really is. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here until 1 o'clock. That gives us about 10 minutes. Let me just read a couple more messages for you. Tony said, my dad taught me to weld at 13. I worked for him at weekends until I was 16. During the school week, I worked in a shop. That made me £350 to buy a brand new Vespa. Then I went to work as an apprentice for a multinational, been all around the world, had a blast, and I wouldn't do it differently, but I worked hard. My daughter had a bad start at school and now manages 10 people at a vast electrical contractor and has my work ethic. She drives a Merc, comes home and logs on again like I do. It's all about the work ethic. This one from Rachel. Mum and Dad didn't coax me into work. I wanted money at 15 to buy ridiculously expensive sweaters, which Mum wouldn't pay for. So I couldn't wait to start a weekend job. But I do believe the pandemic has affected young people substantially. And I think it probably has in ways that we don't understand. But how long is that excuse going to hold for? When I left school in 1983, my dad said, you've got to get a job or you're out the house. As I was still only 16 and not 18, it was a shock to hear. But I got a call from a job centre for an interview and I spent 9 months working on the A39 as a chain boy. That sounds a bit dodgy. What is a chain boy? I don't know what a chain boy is. And Nick says, my mum told me at the age of 16, you need to get a job and contribute to the household. We weren't well off back in the day. I started to work and thrived, and I had so much self-pride knowing I was doing a good job for my family and contributing to society. I did drop out of school without gaining any A-levels, but they also say you'll go nowhere without your grades. I continue to work, and I've never been out of work, never claimed benefits, and now earn 52 grand a year. I'm proud of my mum making me look for work at a young age because it's given me the determination to keep progressing. That's from Nick. And I do think it's an enormous gift to give your children, is the idea that work is the right thing to do. James is in Dagenham, another new caller to the programme. Good morning, James. Thank you for calling.
Hello, how you doing? Thanks for taking the call.
I'm good. I'm really happy to speak to you. I can see on your notes you've got a really good comment to make. So tell me what it is that you think is the issue here.
Well, I think the issue is with the education there for the kids. I think they're keeping them in school too long. And it's easy now for the kids, because at my age we always thought it wasn't easy to get in university and things like that, but they can get into university and they're not really, they're getting the degrees, but the jobs are becoming harder. They're not really available. They don't want to start at a lower grade, which is what we normally do if we're out of school at 16. You start low and go high.
Yeah.
That was one of the points. But another point is looking, I mean, I'm in the building trade, and when you'd always have someone's son or someone's brother, and you can take kids through and learn them a few bits and stuff, that sort of thing. But that's all gone now.
Really?
There's none of that, because all the computers and the things like that, and I don't knock that. I really think if the kids are into the IT and they can progress with that and they're clever with that, but it's very strange. It's an hard one. But what I want to get to as well is the education thing. Why are they keeping the kids in school so long, thinking that they're going to get better grades and better education, but they're not learning the real tools of society, which is your hands, your brain, and your thinking.
I absolutely agree. And James, I'd go a step further, because with my son at school, he wasn't good with education. He didn't like it. It didn't suit him. Right? It just didn't. He's an incredibly smart boy or man now, but the whole constraint of education, and he would say to me things like, I'm taking these exams on these really pointless questions, and I'm learning them parrot fashion. That's not learning. That's not teaching me anything. No. It's just teaching me how to repeat something. So I had a real problem with that. But I think that at the age of 13, 14, they should split pupils, because there was literally no point my son doing chemistry, biology and physics.
Petrie,
none.
Did you have a motor vehicle studies in your school? Did you have a a timber yard and things like that? These schools are so high tech now. There's none of that.
That's true. We had a woodworking class. The girls weren't allowed to. We weren't allowed to go and do woodworking or metalwork. There was a metalworking class as well. But those things I don't think they exist anymore.
They don't exist.
No.
Is that a problem?
Yes.
Society? I don't know.
I just think it is a waste of time when you've got some children who are book smart and other children who are street smart or different smart. Yeah. So what you do is you split them at the age of 13. So look, really, there's no point you doing phisix, chemistry, and biology, because you're not going to be a doctor, right? But forget it. It's a waste of energy.
But I've got a 12-year-old, and to be fair, if you're going to split it, I don't mean to stop you there, but if you split it and then they may feel uncomfortable, I don't know. But what it is, if there's an option there, but the only option is at the moment is the higher books and the higher grades. That is the only option. There's no other sort of, our science teacher used to have snakes and lizards and everything running around. It was fun, and you could learn, and you didn't feel out of place.
Yeah. I just think there are children you can sit them down and just say, look, do you really think that that because you look at an electrician. When I bought a house decades ago, right? And I got an electric. He had retired at the age of 42 with 2 properties in Barbados and 3 in London.
Yes.
Because as an electrician, he was making a fortune.
Yeah, but it's like you say, you're coming back to money, but it's not about the money. It's about sort of learning the trade, being able to put back into society, like you're saying. The kids nowadays, they're not going to be able to do anything at the 13 to 18, like you say, like the paper rounds. The milk's gone now. There's no milk floats on the streets, really.
Yeah.
I was a milk boy, £2 a day. I mean, I'm 48 now. Yeah, £2 a day. He used to get up in the morning before school. He used to drive on the back of his bike. We used to go up to Redbridge, food around. I was back to go to school. But that £2 was lovely.
Yeah.
And I don't think the kids nowadays have not got the option, because it's all too.
But would they choose it? I mean, that's the thing. You know, you look at a building site and you think, oh, I don't want to do that. It's dirty, or it's hard work, or it's physical.
I do agree. But the electricians, they're on a building site. There's you know, plumbers, you know, anybody. But it's not just about the building. I do feel like even with paper rounds, like you say, or that 13 to 18 of doing something with what, like the work experience now, I don't know what that involves really, but it's always going to be office-based, I do feel.
And not everybody is suited. Not everybody learns that way. Not everybody is suited. The education system is a one-trick pony. It is one size fits all, and not all children learn the same.
You can't do their own work.
No.
It's very hard. It's all you know, equations and.
Oh, I couldn't do maths from I think from the age of 11. I couldn't do my son's maths work.
It's very hard for us as parents to try and teach them that, but I think they feel uncomfortable if they're not keeping up.
But that's why we've got to rewire it, James, and say, look, you're not a failure if you choose this way of learning, or you choose to learn that. And this is the problem, is lots of governments have gone, oh,